Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, ma'am. Dr. Chase? Here. Ms. Decatur?
Here.
Ms. Egan?
Here.
Ms. Hazard? Here. Ms. Healy?
Here.
Mr. McCosker?
Here.
Ms. Young?
Presente.
Madam Chair, you have a quorum.
Would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Do we have a motion for approval of the agenda?
Madam Chair,
Sorry. Oh,
I can
amend it to delete the close, delete.
Madam Chair, I have a motion to amend the agenda.
Okay.
We will be taking off closed session as soon as I pull it up.
12.01.
12.01.
how about motion to approve the agenda subtracting or removing the final closed session item? How about that?
Second.
That's what you wanted to say.
Second.
All right. I'll leave that up to you who decide whose motion that is, but it's between Mr. McOsker and Ms. Hazard.
First and second.
We have a motion and a second. The agenda will be exactly as it is, except the closed session at the end will not be necessary because it was taken care of earlier. All right, all in favor of the motion to approve the amended agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. That brings us to special presentations, 4.01, year-end report from the School Health Advisory Committee. Mr. Justice.
A second here. I practiced this earlier. Thank you. Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, Ms. Kayla, our acting superintendent. It's nice to be with you tonight. I'm Michael Justice. I'm the facilitator for health, physical education, athletics, and student wellness. I'm here tonight to share an update summary of our work and learning from the School Health Advisory Committee for this year, 2017 and 18. Our kickoff meeting in September, we started off looking at 13 different topics that were possible areas of focus or work for this committee, knowing that it would not be, we would not be able to look at 13 topics adequately in 1 year. We participated in a discussion activity where we narrowed and combined several topics together, and then a rating activity where we came up and identified 4 areas of focus. Those 4 areas of focus are as follows on this slide: mental and emotional health of students, concussion prevention, drug awareness curriculum, and medical support for extracurricular activities. So of our 13 topics that we started off with, through a variety of activities and discussion, we narrowed them down to these 4 areas. SHAC explored these 4 identified areas of focus in the following manner. First, we invited some staff to give us some updates. So from Student Services, Melanie Daniels, along with several school counselors, social workers, and school psychologists came and shared some information and updates with us. Berkeley Dumbrack from School Nutrition also came and gave us the latest and greatest from VDOE and the world of school nutrition. I provided some updated and current research concerning concussion prevention and care of brain injury and concussions in athletics and athletes. And Nikisha White shared information from school health and school nursing with our committee. We also received some information and community presentations from a few folks concerning childhood obesity, Youth at Risk Committee that it runs out of the Sheriff's Department, as well as opiates and Narcan information. So as a result of looking at 13 different topics, narrowing those to 4, receiving some information and discussion from various departments and staff updates, as well as community presentations from several folks. The SHAC committee is bringing forward several recommendations. The first two are in the area of concussion prevention and care. Place a renewed emphasis on proper hydration education of our athletes and its relationship to concussion prevention. So we know that even a reduction of 2 to 4% of body fluid, we can dramatically expose our athletes and our children to suffering either concussion or a more severe concussion. So proper hydration, what is a proper fluid to drink, what are fluids to avoid and stay away from. It will be an area of emphasis for our coaches, our athletic trainers, as well as our athletic directors in middle schools and high schools. Along those same lines, another area that we explored and learned about was the role of neck strength in concussion risk sports. So it is recommended that the athletic trainers develop a neck strengthening protocol to be incorporated in the warm-up activities of our high-risk concussion sports in an attempt to help increase the neck strength of our athletes to help prevent that whiplash effect when they either run into somebody else, run into the ground, or come in contact with a piece of equipment. So those two areas we plan to incorporate in an attempt to see if we can further make an impact on our number of concussions and the number of severe concussions that we are experiencing. In addition to those two recommendations, SHAC brings forward these recommendations that would require board support and approval. They are as follows. Increase the number of social workers and school psychologists to assist students in the need of mental health services. Provide funding to support suicide and depression prevention education, either in the form of resources or programs. Support the acquisition of Narcan for opiate emergencies that may occur on our grounds or in our buildings, whether it's a student, a staff member, or somebody who is attending something that may be an event that may be going on at that building. Provide funding to purchase an additional Mako OAE hearing screening and vision testing device for special needs students. We currently have one here in Stafford County. I saw a demo a couple weeks ago of this device, and it is an amazing piece of equipment for our special needs students who are nonverbal, who could not possibly maybe respond in an appropriate manner in terms of their vision or their hearing. And so it is a recommendation that we provide funding to purchase an additional device as either to speed up or be a backup if something were to happen to that one device that we have. So as a result of our work on 13 initial topics, narrowing to 4, inviting staff for updates and including community members into our meetings, those are the recommendations that the School Health Advisory Committee brings to the board at the conclusion of this 17-18 year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Justice. Does anyone have any questions? Ms. Egan?
Thank you, Mr. Justice.
Yes, ma'am.
Just a real quick question. Do our school resource officers carry Narcan like the street deputies do?
It is my understanding that the SROs do have
They do.
the Narcan,
But we would like to have them in our nurse's office.
in the nurse's
and-
office,
Okay.
which will require training, a prescription from a physician Dr. Peter Smith has offered to serve in that capacity.
Okay.
And so that would give us an additional coverage from the school nurse in the clinic.
Is there a lifespan on Narcan? Does it go bad after a while, or is it something that you can carry on you for a while and have it still be effective?
All right, so I'm going to say there probably is, but I do not know the shelf life on Narcan.
Okay.
I do not know, but that is something that we can get that information for you.
And cost, too. We'd like to know what the cost is.
So with the training offered by Dr. Smith to our nurses, the cost, from my understanding, is nothing.
Oh.
So it's just making the decision whether we're going to pursue that as something to have on hand in case of an emergency.
Okay. Thank
So-
you.
And I do recall, I think he did say it was a shelf life. I don't remember the
I
amount.
don't
but,
either.
you know, you cannot keep it there and forever and ever. Right.
But if it's either no or minimal cost, then that would not be an issue.
we would have to-
Unlike
we'd have to
EpiPens,
apply
which has
for
a
that.
shelf life of a year.
Didn't he say we'd have to apply for it? I mean, he provides it, but, you know, it should not be a problem, and that would be something that the, you know, I would think would have to come forward to the board for approval.
Yes, ma'am.
Dr. Chase?
So I just had a question about, you know, I think it's great to try to prevent concussions. Does the school system have, and maybe you know this, maybe you don't, a clear protocol for post-concussion, for teachers being notified and students being given time to recover from their concussion and all of that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, terrific.
We have a fairly extensive return to play, RTP,
Great.
RTL, return to learn protocols and procedures that are put into place even if it's a suspected concussion.
Terrific.
So,
Great, thanks.
yes, ma'am.
Any other questions, Ms. Hazard?
Sorry, just one. Your second bullet about providing support for suicide and depression prevention education, was there any recommendation either from the committee of a particular program or way to go about it?
So one organization that was brought up in the update discussion that evening was the Mental Health America of Fredericksburg Suicide Prevention Education Program. It's local, and there's a minimal cost per student that participates. That would be the nuts and bolts that we would have to figure out who would participate, how many students, who would it be offered to, student at risk or a larger group. But we do, that is the local expert, recognized expert group in this area of depression, suicide, anxiety, worry, trauma for students.
One other comment I would add is dependent upon if our schools have a significant number of military-attached kids, there are also some really great resources over at the base at Quantico that
Great point.
actually have looked, well, are familiar with this too, that may also be, at least for certain of our schools, might meet that military attached. I know there's, so that may be another one that I have a feeling will not be of a significant cost to the community. So that may be another resource we can
Another avenue
pursue.
to explore. Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
I have one.
Ms. Young?
Yes, thank you. Medical support for extracurricular activities, what does that entail?
So whether it would be having the management of an inhaler, if a student needs it, encouraging the students to bring it if they have it. If they don't have it, helping them acquire inhalers, EpiPens, if we have students that have the challenge of dealing with diabetes and they're involved in extracurricular activities, having those sponsors and coaches trained to be able to administer that medication, and that training is offered through the nurses and school health staff and student services several times a year. So people going on field trips, club sponsors and coaches who have students that have certain medical and medicine needs to be trained on how to administer and help those students out. So we had that discussion, what does that look like, what are we doing, how many times are we offering that training, and so on. And that was one of the things that Nikisha came and shared with us the night that she came to the committee meeting.
Okay, so this is not something that was already discussed in terms of cost?
And it was just the mechanics and what we have in place, educate the committee on what we're doing currently to provide that support for students in extracurricular activities that may need some kind of medical help while they're away from home on a school-sponsored event.
Okay, and then I know in the past my kids have been active in these activities, and do the ones that have issues or concerns or medical needs and they're in some of these activities, do you carry their profile with you when you travel?
So if it's an athletic sport or activity that's documented on their VHSL physical form and in their medical history by the parents and the doctor, and then we carry a copy of that. It's the emergency medical form with their needs or the condition or what they would possibly need, as well as the emergency contact information if something were to arise. So those documents are carried in the med kits.
Thank you. And then
Yes, ma'am.
the other thing, support the acquisition of Narcan for opioid emergencies. Opioid is the only thing that you're discussing here? That's the only emergency?
That's
you have?
the only recommendation in terms of, from the committee, based on information that was shared for us, in terms of opiate emergencies and how could we better respond. And so,
Because there's other drugs that the kids are involved in besides.
yes, ma'am. You're correct. But in terms of an intense time response emergency, this ranks up there as about as serious as it gets. And so the quicker we have
I
something
think
to.
this is the one that we've decided to have as an emergency. There are others.
This
I
was
trying to
the
say that.
committee's
Yeah.
recommendation.
Got it.
To focus in that area.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Well, thank you, Mr. Justice, we appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am.
And if anyone wants to be on the Student Health Advisory Committee, there are openings
There
for
are.
the coming year. I think, what is our date that we're
sorry,
going
I
to
have
be
one more
recruiting? Let me just get the answer to this before I lose track.
Yeah.
The date that the applications for any of our committees is being announced.
Mr. Justice.
The end of July, okay. All right, so you've got all of next month to get those applications in, not just the Student Health Advisory Committee, but any of the advisory committees. We're trying to get the applications in a little earlier so we can be more organized that first week, 1st of September, when the committees start meeting. So, thank you, Mr. Justice.
Just one question. I
Follow
just
up?
want to know how many students we had in these activities. I didn't see a number. I was just.
How many students that participate in our extracurricular activities? All right, so later on in the agenda, when you get to the VHSL membership application, the 5 attachments give the exact number
Right.
of student participants in those various activities, and it ranges from 650 at the high school level to close to 900 in the high schools, and we're looking at 250 to 300 students per middle school, and it fluctuates, that are participating in the athletic activities.
Okay.
So the clubs and stuff, I do not have that.
And the
That breakdown.
percentage of football players is probably about 60?
Middle school, 45, 50. High school could carry as many as 150 when you look at freshman, freshman, JV, and varsity.
Got it.
So,
Thank
All
you.
right,
a large
so
number.
you got your other hat on this,
yes, ma'am.
this query.
Anything else?
No, good.
All right.
Thank you. 4.02 is the year-end report from the Career and Technical Education, CTE Advisory Committee.
Good evening, Madam Chairman, school board members, and Mrs. Kale. Thank you for the opportunity tonight to present our Career and Technical Education Advisory Committee report. I would like to introduce Mr. Walter Hom, our advisory chairman, who will make the presentation.
Thank you, Donna.
Madam Chair, board members, Ms. Kale, it's my pleasure this evening to provide you a review of the Career and Technical Education Advisory Committee activities this year and a forecast of what we plan to do next year. First, though, I would like to thank every one of you for your strong support of the wide range of CTE programs, which have made a great difference in allowing students to excel in careers right out of high school and be prepared for post-high school education in various different areas, technical schools, 2-year programs, and traditional 4-year programs. There are various things I'd like to cover on this CTE today and tomorrow, but I'm going to concentrate on the 3rd and 4th bullet, what's different about CTE today and why CTE. What's different encapsulated is that there are many, many more opportunities, and the CTE programs prepare students much better than in previous years. Now, I don't know that any of you are quite as long out of high school as I am, but I remember VOTEC very well, and CTE is nothing like it. And you've seen me emphasize this several times. This is not your father's VOTEC. In moving on to why CTE, let me give you a couple of statistics to reinforce what I have in that paragraph. 1, math, reading, and readiness for college. 37% of high school seniors are ready for college math and reading. 80% of CTE students in a college prep course are ready for CTE programs. Now, I have to qualify this. Statistics come from an article by the Association for Supervision and Curriculum Development. I believe some of you are familiar with that, and I believe your staff is familiar with that also. Statistics are a year old, but I think that they're still good. A few other statistics: high school graduation rates. 93% on average CTE students graduate from high school. 81% of high school dropouts said that a relevant real-world learning program would have kept them in school. And lastly, jobs availability without a bachelor's degree. 50% of STEM jobs in the U.S. today are open to workers with less than a bachelor's degree. However, 30% of those jobs require some additional college or a 2-year associate's degree. Now, I'd like to focus a bit on one of the points in the last bullet, in particular, the career exploration and decision making, because I think that's very important relative to CTE. How many of you, when you were sophomores in high school, knew what your career path was going to be? I certainly didn't. How many of you have children or know people who have children who change career paths several times after high school and maybe, shall I say, wasted money and career progression time? We think CTE allows students to explore many different career areas, or at least a few different career areas, with much less risk, much less resource expense than they would later on. It doesn't provide a crystal ball, but it sure is a fairly good enabler. So what makes CTE programs successful? Most of all, I believe, is communication. And I'll say this from my point of view and from talking to many teachers in Stafford County, communication with parents really makes a big difference. Communication with everybody's good, but parents make a big difference. Integration of education programs. I think Stafford County is doing a great job and is improving on that. That's really one of the shining lights of CTE in Stafford County. And then business and industry participation, something that requires some work, and it is business participation is a hallmark of all successful CTE programs throughout the Commonwealth, but also within the U.S. Observations about CTE in Stafford County. I'm going to focus on bullets 3, 4, 5, and 6, since the others I've talked to already. Additional work opportunities are really necessary, and work opportunities for experience as compared to exposure. Exposure can be had in schools. Experience really requires an outside school program. We have some of those. Stafford County needs more. Additional teachers are needed to meet student demands. For next year, 204 students applied for the STAT programs, that is IT, biomedical, and engineering. 120 were accepted. That's about 55%. Granted, it's competitive programs. However, given that CTE programs are such an enabler for success, it would be very advantageous to expand the programs, understanding that that will take resources. Additional staffing for program management. And I promise your staff did not tell me to put this on the slide. It's my own observation that the requirements both state and other, have been growing steadily over the last few years, and your staff management or resources have not. You really need more help in that area. And of course, connections to business and industry. Committee interests and concerns. I'll only talk about the ones that we haven't talked about before. First off, there are certain CTE teachers who spend a great deal of after-hours time with CTSOs, that's Career and Technical Student Organizations. We've got some very successful ones. However, as I understand it, the participation in some of the programs have been reduced lately just because of the non-availability of teachers, and the opportunities for students have been reduced. You will see me on a recommendation later on recommend that compensation be provided for those teachers who are spending large amounts of time in CTSO areas. Our committee is exploring the potential for assisting CTSOs, but as I understand it, there's only a certain amount that citizens or non-school employees can do. So we can reinforce, but we can't replace much of the work that has to be done by teachers in the CTSOs. Finally, local career market assessments are essential. Because of lack of resources, I understand those have not been done recently. That is how a school fashions and focuses its career and technical programs, both the local and the regional market. Where are the jobs? What do we need to train the students for? Our committee's activities this year. We've done a number of things. Perhaps most important were tours that we took of both Stafford County schools and Chesterfield County schools. I don't mind saying that after reviewing Chesterfield County schools and Stafford County schools, Chesterfield having 2 centralized CTE facilities and CTE programs at their schools, they ain't got nothing on Stafford County. Stafford County has great programs, instructional and facility-wise. Unfortunately, we were unable to get information on work-to-learn opportunities, but I'm not so sure they're doing any better. Stafford is doing very well in those areas as compared to the one division that we looked at, and we understand that they have some very good programs. We started an advocacy program just in its early stages. We are not engaging with legislators. We are engaging with the community so that they can engage, providing them information and also trying to have businesses have greater interest in helping the schools. And finally, we actually have a member of our committee on the VDOE CTE Advisory Committee. Ms. Christina Clark has done a great job in working with that committee and keeping our own committee informed. Christina, would you mind raising your hand or standing up? Thank you, Christina. You've done some great work. Future plans, I'm not going to talk to that. I think that that's easy to read, and I don't have any further comments. Committee members. We have a cross-section of people. I think many of you know that CTE advisory committees are mandated by VDOE. We have people both from the community, teachers, students. The one thing that I would ask is please encourage more students to join advisory committees, not just CTE, but all others. We have gotten incredible amount of insight from students that we would never have gotten any other place. So it's really important that they participate in these communities. Recommendations for the school board. They follow the points that I provided earlier on. We recommend to provide adequate staffing for high-demand CTE programs, meaning more classes for STAT in particular, and perhaps other programs, and additional resources for management of statutory requirements of CTE, and they are growing considerably. 2, we recommend that you find a way to compensate teachers for after-hours CTSO activities in the same way that you do for other after-hours activities. 4, pursue increased engagement with business and industry. Our committee is doing that right now. However, the force of the school board and the staff would encourage the community to participate more. And lastly, develop increased work-to-learn opportunities. That is very much connected to the 3rd bullet and community engagement. Lastly, thank you again for all your support of continuing CTE programs. They are doing very, very well. They're growing, and look forward to next year. And I can take your questions if you would like.
Any questions for Mr. Ham?
Oh, go ahead.
Ms. Young?
Just a comment. It was wonderful working with all you all this year. Sarah and I enjoyed it. So we'll be back next year, if y'all will have us.
Very good. One last comment that I've forgotten. We have several information papers that provide more detail on the comments we made here. We don't have them finished yet. We will be providing them to the board within the following weeks. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Hammond. Thank you to all the members of your committee as well. All right, that brings us to citizen comments.
I'd like to read citizen comments. Individuals wishing to comment at this time may do so by responding to the general invitation by the chairman, just happened. Speakers shall identify themselves by name, address, and organizational affiliation. If the spokesperson represents an organization, speakers shall also announce the purpose, topic of their comments. 3 minutes shall be allotted to speakers. The chairman reserves the right to restrict the total citizen comment received at any particular meeting to a predetermined maximum number of minutes with the approval of the board. Citizen comment which is profane, abusive, or which threatens imminent physical harm shall be ruled out of order by the chairman. Although the board provides the opportunity for citizen comments, individuals desiring to register complaints against division employees or division programs, services, or activities may also utilize the procedures outlined in Stafford County Policy 1113, Public Complaints.
Thank you. We have 6 people who've signed up. I'm going to call those names and have them come forward first. Please give us your name and address when you come forward. And then after these 6 speakers, anyone from the audience who wants to address the board is welcome to come up. If you have not already signed in, other than the 6 people, there is a sign-in sheet at the podium right as you leave the podium. We ask that you sign in that for the record. The first speaker is Angela Schumacher. The second is Matthew Sutton, and the third is Danielle Kushner.
Good evening, Madam Chairman and members of the board and guests. My name is Angela Schumacher, and I live at 24 Turnstone Court in the Hartwood District. I'm the parent of 6 children, 5 who've already graduated from Stafford County Schools and 1 who will continue our tour of graduation in Stafford County Schools in 2 years' time. I'm here before you this evening to address the topic of calendar change. Until recently, I believed myself to be somewhat undecided and perhaps even neutral as to whether or not I supported pre-Labor Day or post-Labor Day calendar start to the year. On the one hand, I could appreciate that there are benefits to both, and on the other hand, I could also appreciate the statements made by our previous superintendent that there doesn't seem to be a definitive one thing to push us in either direction on the matter. Change is not easy, and changes will never be made that please everyone. But to make a change for the sake of making a change is not in the best educational interest of our students. To make a change because it adds value to or enhances the best educational interest of our students, that is a valid reason for change. More important than any argument to date pertaining to this topic is the simple fact that in the state of Virginia, the law prohibits the start of the school year prior to Labor Day. Earlier this year, legislation allowing Virginia school districts to start classes before Labor Day died in session of the General Assembly, thereby leaving the law prohibiting the start of school prior to Labor Day intact, as it has been for 32 years. The exception to this law is to obtain a waiver from the Board of Education based on one of the good cause options of the Code of Virginia. Additionally, all school districts must certify annually that they meet one of the criteria for a pre-Labor Day start opening waiver, or they will not open prior to Labor Day. Simply put, this means that until such time as the legislation changes are made to our state laws, a waiver only grants a calendar change for a period of 1 year at a time, 1 year at a time, and could ultimately cause great upheaval if the criteria is not met for the following year, thus resulting in the return to a post-Labor Day start. Stafford County Public Schools does not currently have a waiver allowing for the start of school prior to the Labor Day. There is no guarantee that one would be granted if applied for. The waiver is the exception to the law. This board does not have the authority to act outside of the confines of the law or the exception to the law. Instead of taking a vote this evening to make changes that this board does not yet have the authority to make, I urge you, I ask you to instead vote as to whether or not Stafford County Public Schools will apply for a pre-Labor Day opening waiver in accordance with the Virginia Code, and to do so with transparency. Only when and if a waiver is applied for and granted will it be appropriate for a vote to be taken to change or not to change the calendar year. Until that time, Stafford County Public Schools have far more serious issues that need to be addressed. I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Mr. Sutton?
Good to see everybody again. Matt Sutton, Garrisonville District, Embry Mill. I have met many of you, and I'm glad to be here. I'm going to buck the trend of what I'm sure you have heard and will continue to hear from the other parents in district on the calendar, and I'm going to say, please, dear Lord, vote yes on a pre-Labor Day one. I've looked at both the calendars, doesn't matter which one, both pre-Labor Days work great. This county has busted its butt to switch to a semester block schedule, especially at the high schools. It shifted a lot of it even into the middle school. With your pre-Labor Day, students get to take their midterm exams, go home for Christmas break, relax, reset, come back with a fresh start in the second semester. You're home before June in the summer. You still get your 2 months off. Upside to that too, 90% of all missed school days due to inclement weather, usually snow, although it's been a light couple of years, happen in January and February. When you miss school in January in the first semester and you make it up in the second semester, you're not really making anything up. You're just piling on the second side and not making up for what was missed. This will greatly address that issue that is common to us. We had a light couple of winters. We're going to have a bad one coming up. I've lived in this county long enough to see it come. So thank you for doing that. In terms of precedents and legality, as was previously mentioned, every other county surrounding Stafford County seems to somehow magically pull this off to go back before Labor Day. Stafford County can do it too. So please vote yes, move into the 21st century. We are not a bunch of farmers that have to follow that. We are also not beholden to King's Dominion and Busch Gardens. They don't dictate what works for our students. I've seen some complaints from others about how we don't have enough time to plan effectively for it, and there's other things that are more important. There's one thing teachers and school board and everybody can do is walk and chew gum at the same time. We can all update our calendars. We've got 1 year to go. And I'm saying this with a sacrifice. I have a big summer vacation planned for my kids. I'm planning on the Griswold family vacation to Grand Canyon next summer. You know what? I'm going to cancel it because I know my kids will go back earlier in August. My wife teaches in the county. It's going to impact her. I'm for it. I've talked to a lot of my neighbors. A lot of them are for it, even though they couldn't make it here tonight. And please vote yes on pre-Labor Day. Thank you.
Thank you. After Ms. Kushner, Adela Bertoldi will speak.
Hello, I'm Danielle Kushner. I'm in the Rock Hill District. I'm here today to say that I do not support starting school prior to Labor Day. Several different reasons, most of them you've already heard. as you continue to hear, because we seem to continue to bring this up every year. Statistics haven't proved that starting school early improves the test scores. I really don't see the point in adding more early release days. This just complicates things on so many different levels for parents, for teachers, for the bus schedules, and if you're already running them, why not just keep the kids there 2 more hours? I think that spring break should revolve around the Easter time frame. I don't like it just being pulled off to some obscure dates. And I'm also curious as to, I really didn't see a lot of this put out there for the parents to know about this. I was curious as to if this was put out on various websites or Peach Jar or anything to that aspect, to know that this is really being addressed and that you are going to be voting on this yet again. I think that's about all I have. I just wanted to put it out there that, you know, a lot of people do have their opinion on this, and I'm not sure if everybody has been given the proper amount of time to really know that this is out there. And I am not for prior Labor Day. That's all.
Thank you. After Ms. Bertoldi, Christina Sussman.
Good evening, Madam Chairman and School Board. Thank you for hearing me this evening. My name is Adela Bertoldi. I live at 10 Kingsley Court in Stafford, Virginia. I have an incoming kindergartner over at Winding Creek. And you know, when I originally heard about this for this, this year that is being addressed tonight, I really didn't think one way or another how I felt about it. I tried to liken it to changing jobs. If I'm happy in a job and I make a certain amount of money and I like the people I work with, would I leave a job for a similar job for similar pay with people that I don't know? The answer is no, and I think that most people would not. And I think that, as our first speaker so eloquently actually said, is you really don't change a status quo unless you're going to be changing it for something better that's going to be helping our students and our system. And let's go through it. Let's think about what it's going to be. Number one, academics. I think we've heard multiple times that there is not going to be any benefit to academics or changing test scores. Okay, so what about well-beings of students? All right, I don't think sitting on a hot school bus, because we all know that most of them, or at least some of them, are not air conditioned, in the middle of summer is going to be beneficial to the school bus drivers or the students sitting on them. Some kids, I mean, my child will be very lucky. She lives, I mean, if there were sidewalks on Courthouse Road, she'd be able to walk to school. But most kids, they have to get up very early in the morning and they have to ride a school bus for an hour and a half. The school bus driver's got to be on there all day, right? So you're going to what, put them on a school bus and with no air conditioning? Because that's not really great for the well-being of our students or our staff and our school bus drivers. What about playtime outside? I know that in the preschool, my daughter's preschool, if it's too hot, they don't get to play outside. That's a very important part of a school day. That's why you have it, for interaction, social time. So we're not going to have that in the middle of hot summer. Economics, I say no, because you know you're probably going to have to buy new school buses, and we all know those are at least $100,000. So, because we're not going to do that, right? We're not going to put our kids and people at jeopardy who might also have conditions that can't be in hot weather. So you have that. You have advertising, notices, everything else that goes with changing a complete system to something different that, by the way, works. So what's that leave? That leaves personal reasons. Now, I've heard lots of personal reasons, and frankly, they're all valid. I mean, everybody has personal reasons to want to do this, you know, and some people do believe that there is going to be a benefit to children who are in AP, who are in IB, who are in special classes. Well, even if that's true, hypothetically, even if that's true, last year the total amount of students was 29,113, and there was only 3,389 students in advanced classes. So if you take, and I guess I'm out of time. Thank you very much.
Seconds to wrap up.
Oh, I appreciate that. So even if you take that as truth, you know, I really think that we need to benefit all students, and where can we do that? Is hiring more teachers and paying them more money, instead of talking about changing something that doesn't really outwardly benefit anybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Batoli. Christina Sussman, followed by Dan Crawford, and Mr. Crawford is the last person to sign up, so anyone can follow him.
Hello, everyone. My name is Christine Sussman. I'm I live in the Rock Hill district, and I have a high schooler and an 8th grader. I was here last year to discuss the calendar, and I wasn't for it last year, and I'm here again this time to say that I am not for it again. I just do not find any instructional benefit to an earlier start date. Every year we discuss this, and because other districts are doing it, doesn't necessarily mean that Stafford has to jump on the bandwagon and do it as well, and that this current schedule works for Stafford. I don't necessarily think it needs to be changed just for the sake of changing it. It does not seem right to change the schedule specifically for a very small population of the student body, which would be the AP, the IP students, to change everyone else's schedule to assist those students. Also, not certain that it would add additional instructional time due to the extra half days that are added to the schedule. I'm not also 100% certain that it would lower the amount of days after the SOLs in which no instruction nothing is being taught, and it's just kind of free time where the kids are sitting around watching their movies. I do think that's still going to be worked into the calendar, and I don't think that's going to cut it out either. I just think Stafford has other issues that it needs to focus on, and this perhaps is not one of them. So, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Crawford.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dan Crawford. I live at 23 Wells Road in Stafford, Virginia. My wife and I are both residents of this county, homeowners, and teachers in the county, and I'm here to ask you to please approve a pre-Labor Day start because I do believe that it would help our students. As a teacher especially, I can say that, because when they leave towards the end of the first semester to go on Christmas break for a week or sometimes 2, and according to school board policy, we're not allowed to assign them work over that break. They don't, and even if we did, they probably wouldn't do it. When they come back, we have sometimes a week or less to prepare them for their SOL tests. And that's a lot of that is what we're judged on as a school, is how well we do in our SOL tests. And that really does harm the kids. And doing it before, like one of the previous speakers says, finishing the semester, having a nice clean break and coming back for a new one would be better. Plus, we do get a lot of, when we come back and we have that week or sometimes a week and a half to prepare them for the tests, is when we get most of the snow days in January. And then, so testing gets shoved back further and further, and that does not help the students in any way, shape, or form. So once again, as a teacher, we would like that pre-Labor Day start because we think it would help our students, because I do believe the post-Labor Day start does harm them. And thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Crawford. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board? Please come forward at this time. And if you could give us your name and address. I think the speakers coming forward know the drill, but for the record, I'll say, please give us your name and address, and when you finish, sign
You
in.
can probably tell me my name and address. I've spoken many times on this over the years, and I really didn't actually prepare a speech because you've heard everything I have to say. So I just had one additional thought, and it's an overall picture rather than specifically worrying about SOL scores and as if that's the most important thing in our children's lives, which, let me tell you, it is not. One of the reasons why we moved to Stafford, Virginia is because when we came here, originally in 1990, and then again in 2005, Stafford is a refuge. And it's a refuge from Northern Virginia, and we're hanging on to that title with a vengeance. We're a refuge from, for the most part, traffic, crime, the hustle and bustle, politics, and yeah, we have a little bit of that in Stafford County as well, but a lot less than the neighboring counties, and especially the counties to the north. And I don't know about you, but when you are driving south on 95 and you see that Marine Corps Museum, you know you're getting close. And it's almost like when I cross from the counties north and into Stafford County, it's like my blood pressure goes down 10 points. We are a refuge, and we want to stay that way. So when people say, everybody else around us is doing it, everybody else around us has a pre-Labor Day start. My idea is, I don't care. We are a refuge. We are our own county. We are still a slower-paced county. We want to be a slower-paced rural county. That's who we are. And it doesn't matter whether everybody else around us has this schedule or not. We are the refuge. We are a refuge in so many ways. One of the other things that I thought about as I was listening to one of the previous presentations, the Health Advisory Committee, I'd like to know what he thinks about our students on a school bus all the way through August. I know people say, well, you know, we were on school buses growing up without air conditioning. Well, we also didn't have cell phones, computers, and Novocaine at dentists. Should we go back to doing that as well? If we do make this change, and if we do decide to do this, I would suggest that it has to be done after the majority of our school buses have been equipped with air conditioning. I would also argue on another topic that even if we don't make this change, I think that's something that we need to consider doing regardless, because you just Google health-related illnesses on school bus and you'll be overwhelmed. So regardless of what we do, I'd like to see that change. But once again, as you guys already know, I am very much for our traditional post-Labor Day schedule. It's worked very well, and thank goodness my son is graduating next year, because after that I don't think I'll have to worry about it anymore. Thank you, guys.
Did you give us your name and address?
Oh, Kristen Barnes, 11 Temple Drive. Sorry.
Okay, thank
and
you.
there we go.
Ms. Barnes, could you sign in, please?
I know this drill, too.
Hi, I'm Dana Brown. I live at 41 St. William's Way. I was going to come here tonight because, like everybody else, I've come here and said the same thing over and over again. I was going to read you a letter, but the Freelance Star was kind enough to publish it for me in today's paper, so I'm going to skip that. I've been before you so many times, you know, we've debunked all of the false narratives that you were spoon-fed on reasons why we had to start school in early August. And all that propaganda that you received for years turned out to be nothing but a big bologna sandwich. And let me recap a few things. Again, it's Virginia law that school will start after Labor Day. It's also the law in Maryland, and they studied that for a year before they did that. No instructional benefit, doesn't improve grades or test scores. Dr. Benson admitted that last month. Trying to blame it on the governor's school, that's a no-go. AP summer homework has nothing to do with CGS or starting school after Labor Day. And that whole more time before test, that doesn't hold water either, because now we know that some of our high school teachers are testing early before winter break. Not only do they not think they need more time before tests, they're not even giving them the time they're supposed to have. They're giving them less. And then remember the calendar committee. Remember when bus drivers, protested that August was just too hot without air conditioning on the buses? They were removed from the committee. When parents like me complained about underhanded procedures by staff, like double voting on the survey last year and high cost to start early, we were removed from the committee. I guess you just remove everybody who doesn't agree. Then you were told that our parents were being removed because other localities didn't have parents on their committees. Well, that turned out to be a bologna sandwich too. And remember I told you 2 weeks ago, colleges don't even start that early. And last week, I attended your FAB meeting, and you were grappling with the pressing need to fund an extra, I think it was 10 positions for teachers next year. And I believe the cost of a full-time equivalent teacher is about $68,000 each. And I listened while you guys did a little magic math, shuffling around some of next year's school bus purchase money and swapping it with this year's carryover so you could buy some extra teachers next year. Well, carryover money that you might not even get, carryover money that hasn't even been appropriated yet. That's kind of risky. Yet even with all of that, some of you are tossing around the idea to spend an additional $1.5 million that we don't have to air condition the school buses for the sole purpose of starting school 3 weeks early just because. That's 22 teachers for a year, okay? Again, it's the law. You apply for the waiver annually. Some years you qualify, some you won't. Spotsylvania, in 14 years, has changed their calendar 6 times. 6 times. Is that what we want for Stafford? And lastly, I found it ironic last week that we put out a survey to every parent seeking their opinion of the communications office, yet we couldn't put out even one notice on the calendar changes. No survey, no bulletin, not even an honorable mention on the district website. If you don't read the school board agendas, you wouldn't know about it. But Friday, June 14th, central office did a poll on ice cream, whether people like soft serve or scoops. I guess that's a higher priority than this. And that survey started with the Office of Strategic Communication and Community Engagement is always trying to keep parents informed about division events. I guess not.
Thank you, Ms. Brown.
Thank you.
I believe I saw another speaker in the back of the room as well. All these familiar faces this evening.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Ms. Gale. My name is Joe Godsey. I live in the Falmouth District. I brought my favorite book with me today. Imagine Stafford County Schools as a magnificent tree. The leaves consist of students and parents. The limbs are staff and administrators. The trunk represents bus drivers, buildings, and programs. And of course, the teachers are the roots of this grand tree. What happens when you kill the tree? Adopting any calendar without careful consideration as to unforeseen consequences could prove costly. Or is that the hidden intent? How many teachers left the school division last year because of the step scale being eliminated? How many left this year because teachers may bear the burden of managing 504 plans? How many might leave next June if the wrong calendar is adopted? Why is there no pre-Labor Day calendar with a phase-in option being considered? Is there a financial windfall to be gained by a one-time 3-week jump into August? How much will this one-time 3-week jump cost? What are the 15 days worth? To many teachers, you are asking them, the roots of the tree, to give up 15 days of a part-time job. For others, you're asking them to give up 15 days of a vacation. What about the rising sophomores and juniors at the 5 local high schools who will lose 1/3 of their summer incomes, never to get that money back? Please, don't think of this one-time jump as simply ripping off a Band-Aid. This Band-Aid is very expensive adhesive strip. For the summer of 2018, teachers will have 10 weeks off to work part-time jobs, save on daycare, prepare for this coming school year. How many teachers will leave Stafford next June because of the loss of part-time pay? Will this question be added to their exit survey? If the pre-Labor Day calendar is so instructionally sound, surely it can be phased in over 3 calendar years so that more money is not lost from the pockets of our employees. When we're interested in school calendars, we look at school districts X, Y, and Z. When we're interested in AP tests offered, we look at school systems 1, 2, and 3. When we're talking salaries, it's do, re, mi. It's like being in a fun house of mirrors. We just keep changing mirrors until we get a reflection we like. Could we have one standard, please? You want Westmoreland on your comparison list. Teachers want Fairfax. You want Caroline and Albemarle. Paras and bus drivers want Loudoun and Alexandria. You want King George. Students want the entire state of Maryland. Seems every county in Maryland will begin after Labor Day in 2019. My rising 8th grader listened to my speech this morning, and his only question was, Dad, if we're starting 3 weeks early, why aren't we ending 3 weeks sooner? Maybe there's a waiver for that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. Good job. I didn't come here for this one. Hey, Paul Waldowski, 8 Pickett Lane. I'm the chairman of the 2013 Cicada Committee. Okay, we just finished kindergarten. 2030 is when they graduate from high school. I'm sure there'll only be 5 high schools in 2030 if I'm alive. Now, the main reason I came here is I was working with a couple of high schoolers in my neighborhood, and they gave me some student insights. And Mountain View has a sidewalk to nowhere. And those of you who know me, I am all about safety. When the student tells me he has to get to Mountain View by 6:50 a.m. because he's afraid to cross the street to walk to school, you have a problem. So I advise you to really look at the Mountain View aspect. And I brought it up before about the sign should be on the other side of Pickett Lane. There was $7.6 million spent on Mountain View, and surely we can get a sidewalk to nowhere fixed. The Board of Supervisors used $35,000 so you can stand in front of Hardee's. Now, I love all the orange on your chairs. I'm Oklahoma State. And I always support the Mountain View wrestlers because that's where the Wrestling Hall of Fame is. Let me also share with you, change is what's in my pocket. So learn the English language. So if you're doing change, you better know what you're changing because it's all about real change. We just had a president who talked about hope and change. Hello. Remember, businesses got the word in it. Insight's got in it. IBM's got in it. International Business Machines. That's who I would get one of your committees. Mine's the Cicada Technical Education, okay? I have 188 undergraduate hours. So I know all about VOTEC, and my father taught me how to build birdhouses. So now that I'm on Medicare, I'm a pretty good woodworker. Remember, I'm working on gerrymandering. That's my new aspect. We're going to get 4 districts, and we're going to save this county $24K every 4 years, and we'll be able to buy an air-conditioned school bus every 4 years.
Thank you. Mr. Waldusky, would you please sign in? I guess not. You have that address, 8 Pickett Lane?
Hold on, do you have 8 Pickett Lane?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Okay. All right. Is there anyone else that would like to address the board? Seeing none, we'll close the public comment period. Back to the board. It brings us to board member committee reports. Is there any committee reports today?
Yes.
No,
Legislative, if you want, or you can do that.
you guys are first.
Okay.
All right, we'll start with Ms. Hazard.
At everybody's place, there is a list of those, the legislative committee initial reports. We know these have not been approved, but we had to get something, as we knew, to the county. I did attend their meeting with their lobbyist. They were very interested in the pre-K bullets in there. I mean, several of these are not changing, but that was one that we added. It was interesting to hear, of course, that the Health Advisory Committee talked about social workers and psychologists, so we were already tracking with them before they brought that. So those are to be reviewed, and I figured that as we get through the summer and into the early autumn, we can move these to approval. But anyway, those were the ones, and those were sent to everybody prior to them going over there. So it was just a report. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Ms. Hazard. Ms. Decatur, did you have a report for us?
I do. The Joint Schools Working Committee met last night. We got an update on policy changes for the joint CIP process as we requested last time. And they brought those, and our county administrator and staff brought back some revisions to include a calendar and a timeline for submissions, such as our priority list, which they requested be in, closer to July rather than when did we vote on it this year, May? The following May. So anyways, I think they're really working to fine tune that. And what I would suggest is their FAB held a meeting to review the first year CIP process and discuss, what went well, what didn't, just, kind of review. And I would really, I think that our FAB should do the same thing and maybe bring those recommendations back to the Joint School Working Committee, where we can kind of communicate with the other board members across the street. We also discussed some shared services updates, and within that was a update with central purchasing. The Board of Supervisors kind of discussed some new policy revisions as far as our shared services were concerned, and within those they talked about adding central purchasing. There does remain some concern over that process, where the funds will come from, how will they be rated, do we agree upon the ratings, things of that nature. I would strongly suggest that we as a board take a look at that together before moving forward with any additional, just kind of look at what's
what was brought to us as a board, and see where we stand on that. And that kind of does it for the really important, outstanding things. Sarah was with me. Do you have anything to add to that? I'm sure you do.
The only thing I have to add is that we did share some of our concerns about the public day school, and that we need to sort of have a long-range vision for that plan. So we just shared that with them.
Thank you, both Dr. Chase and Ms. Decatur. Any other committee reports?
Finance and Budget.
Oh, Mr.
This is
McCosker.
my last Finance and Budget serving on this committee. I think we did well last year. We hope we can do well this coming up year with trying to get as much money in the coffers. But let's talk about what we talked about, teacher staffing projections. We heard a little bit of that tonight. We're asking, Mr. Fulmer came to us, our finance expert, and we initially had 20 growth positions in the budget this year, but we reduced it down to 13 to shift money to other areas to try to kind of get a gauge on what and where we're going to have student population surges. But the HR folks have already told us that those 13 have already been used, 6 at the elementary school level and 5.5 at the high school level, and 1.5 at the middle school level. So Mr. Fulmer came to us and asked us whether we can do a trade-off of buses. And it's a very detailed process, but the long story short, and you'll see it in the information items later tonight about how we're going to kind of free up a little bit of the money by buying buses now, as opposed to the end of the year, and then try to buy down some full-time equivalents to cover some teaching positions that we see that we may need. We talked a little bit about shared services as well, the central purchasing administrator. Mr. Fulmer did have a copy of the vacancy announcement, and this came from the Joint Working Schools Committee, Ms. Decatur and Ms. Egan, for us to talk about it. Mr. Fulmer did say that it was something that we've been talking about for a while, and so we hope to get more information on that. Ms. Young actually requested a desk audit be conducted in about 6 months after the position has been filled, and so she wants to ensure that the position description match the actual duties of the job. And then we had concerns about the MOA, the memorandum of agreement or memorandum of saying who does that person work for and all that. So we had a little discussion on that. Execu-time clocks. So this is the old punch clock on steroids. So it's actually a computer. But at first, when this came down, I said, are we having our employees punch into meetings? To punch into school, like, chink, chink. And I guess the answer is yes, and they do it either on their computer in the classroom or they do it in various different ways. But these Execu-time clocks, we do have money on a budget to get these Execu-time clocks purchased. And I think what we're going to find, and I asked Mr. Fulmer, so, how are these going to help? Well, it's going to help track time of employees, but I'll tell you, for the most part, he said it's going to make sure that we're paying folks for overtime in the correct amounts, because that is, by law, what we must do, right? So I think it's going to be an HR nightmare in the school, right? But the long story short is, if we have employees working past their time on the punch clock, on the Execu-time clock, well, we're going to need to pay them, and I think that's a good thing. So that's just me. So we're taking care of that. We had discussions about security enhancements for the $500,000 for FY19, and we're still going through our schools, school by school, to make sure that we know exactly what we have in the schools for security and what we don't have and what we need. So our experts are figuring that out, and the board is working diligently with not only the Sheriff's Department, but the school staff and our security experts here. So more to follow on that. We've got a quick year-end update on our FY18. We always have money, a little bit of money left over. And so we'll talk a little bit about that For the most part, that will be put into our CIP project list that's already in our board docs tonight and for your review, and we can work on our infrastructure projects. We got a state budget update, where we're at with the state budget. We may receive a little bit more money from the state, we're not sure. So we're hoping that is the case. And that's it, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
For that lengthy.
Any other committee reports? No? That brings us to the acting superintendent's comments.
Yes, tonight I'm pleased to announce recent administrator appointments. Mr. Ivan Arana is the school board's appointment as the assistant principal for North Stafford High School. Mr. Arana has served as an assistant principal in Monterey, California, and Germantown, Maryland, prior to this appointment. In addition, he has taught ESOL and special education before becoming an administrator. Mr. Arana earned his Bachelor of Science in Communications from Howard University. He earned his Master of Education from George Washington University and completed his administrator certification program at University of Maryland.
Is he here tonight?
No.
Oh, okay, sorry.
No.
Just checking, just checking.
These are, when these appointments were at the last meeting, we didn't, we had our farewell at the last meeting, so we didn't get all the announcements in.
Our next announcement is Ms. Annie Villanueva, and she is the school board's appointment as Supervisor of Student Services. Ms. Villanueva was a special education department chair at a high school in Prince William County prior to her appointment. She has experience teaching students with autism and specific learning disabilities. Ms. Villanueva earned her Bachelor of Arts in Elementary Education from Virginia Commonwealth University. She earned a master's degree in special education from Liberty University and a master's degree in education leadership from American College of Education in Indianapolis, Indiana. In addition, Mr. Michael Campisi is the school board's appointment as Supervisor of Technology. Mr. Campisi served as a wide area network engineer and system engineer for Stafford County Public Schools prior to this appointment. He also served as a cloud support engineer for Amazon Web Service. Mr. Campisi earned his Bachelor of Professional Studies in Information Assurance and Security from University of Mary Washington. In addition, has multiple certifications in his area. Additionally, I have several administrator moves to announce. Dr. Tammy Hanna, currently principal at Drew Middle School, will be principal at Gale Middle School. Ms. Robin Lloyd, currently principal at Gale Middle School, will be principal at Drew Middle School. Mr. Brian Raska, currently assistant principal at Stafford Elementary School, will be assistant principal at Anthony Burns Elementary School. In addition, as you know, our second annual Teaching Learning Summit is occurring this week, as you can tell by the orange shirts on your chair. And those, if you happen to attend, wear those on Thursday. There have been many positive comments about the event. In fact, one teacher today stated, "This is the way training should be." And he indicated he had been to a lot of training, but this is the way it should be. Another teacher said, "This summit is awesome. I'm enjoying working with my school's teams as well as my job-like peers." And this teacher went on to talk about how she thought she would be tired when she got there after grading, getting the end of school, but then this has rejuvenated her. These are the type of comments I'm hearing, and it's really nice, and I could go on and on. School board members, if you haven't had an opportunity to stop by and visit the summit, please do so tomorrow or Thursday. And thank you, Mrs. Healy, for offering to say closing comments Thursday afternoon. And a special shout out to everyone who has had a part in making this summit such a huge success. And thank you. We hope that you all can attend.
Is it air conditioned?
It is air conditioned.
The place, because this
Yes.
is long sleeve, just.
And we suggest that because we're air conditioned, and if you get warm, push those sleeves up. We have got it.
Thank you, Mrs. Kale. And
That's right, it's work under construction. There we go.
I do want to welcome you to our podium as our acting superintendent. We appreciate all that you're doing and will continue to do while we are on our mission to hire a new superintendent. All right, that brings us to the consent agenda. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve consent? Second?
All right, we have a motion by Ms. Hazard, and was that Dr. Chase, I heard? For a second. All right, any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, motion carries unanimously. And we're going to give Ms. Kale an opportunity to make any announcements from the consent agenda. Are there any announcements? No? All right, sometimes there are, sometimes there not. No announcements today. That brings us to action items. 9.01, appoint school board members to serve on the board's advisory committees. Our advisory committees are listed in the attachment. Those terms expire at the end of this month. So I guess my question would be, is there anyone who wants to change their committee? And if so, what would the request be? We usually ask for volunteers, but I'm afraid to do that. I'm assuming that you're all going to stay where you are unless you move and find somebody who'll switch with you.
Well, I'm gonna start the ball rolling. Is there anyone that wants to be primary gifted, as I have been gifted for 6 years?
Forever.
Right. And my wife tells me I'm very gifted. But I need to move to another.
Or the alternate. Anybody wants to be primary and/or alternate? I'm the alternate.
I'm just gifted out. I mean, I think.
That's okay. We'll just, any volunteers?
Does anyone want to be primary? Ungifted.
Well, I am fine with swapping out if you would like.
Okay.
All right, so that would give you CTE?
Sure.
Or do you want to just see if there's
Do you
any
want to
other-
keep CTE?
No, I want CTE.
Oh, you want CTE?
Yeah.
You want technology?
No.
Okay, one at a time. I'm trying to do this.
One at a time, guys.
Match
One at
the
a time.
dots. Okay, Mr. McOsker is willing to give up gifted, and I hear Dr. Chase is willing to accept it. Is that okay? Let's just mark that down.
Mark it down.
For first. That's a done.
Thank you.
All right, now that gives us an opening. Well,
I'll take primary CTE. Sarah stays. We'll switch. We'll switch.
All
You'll be
right.
alternate, and I'll keep technology. That's my heart.
well, but we need to
Unless
find one
somebody
for
else
Mr.
wants
McOsker.
Technology. Did you want to be technology and I'll be your alternate?
No, you want that way too much. I can't.
All
I do
right.
want it, but I'm going to let
All
you
right,
have
we'll find
it.
you.
I'll be alternate.
That's okay. You can be
Well,
primary.
all right, Dr. Chase, would you want to be the alternate still in technology, or you?
Sure. Well, that's fine, yes.
All right. Mr. Cater, are you good with the special ed?
I'm wonderful with the special
Yes, all right. And I'm willing to stay on there as the alternate unless someone else wants to. No? All right, so special ed's good. CTE is good. The gifted, okay. Does anybody want to be the backup in gifted? I'm the backup and alternate in that. Seeing none.
I mean, I can take your, because you were already on, you're an alternate for a few now. I'll take that.
All right, thank you, Mr. McOsker.
Yep.
All right, so we have a backup there. Performing arts, Ms. Hazard, do you still want to keep that? Anybody want to be the alternate on performing arts?
We're a fun group.
No, it's vacant now. It can stay vacant if we don't have one, but.
I usually make it.
All right, so Ms. Hazard, if you can't go, then try to get someone to go in. It doesn't have to be a same person all the time. All right, so we'll leave that. The CIP, Capital Improvement Planning Advisory Committee, Ms. Egan, did you want to stay as the primary on that?
Yeah, I believe that we're going to need to, where's Scott? Hi. We're going to need to have a conversation about what we're going to do with this. We need to see what the new process is, or the improvements to the CIP process. And if they're not adequate to this board, then we may reinstitute our CIP advisory committee to go back to business as usual. So we'll stand by and wait for an update on what's going to happen with the joint CIP, if we're going to go forward, or if we're going to go back to the way things were.
All right, is there anyone, well, Mr. McOsker, do you want to stay as the alternate on that, or do you want to take another volunteer?
I actually wanted to find, when does the fine arts meet again?
It moves around. It tends to be Monday nights.
Monday nights?
You want to be that's open.
I would rather switch me to the fine and performing arts.
Okay, that's fine.
And just leave, if Ms. Egan's got the primary for CIP.
Is there anyone that wants to be an alternate for CIP?
Yeah, I mean.
I will if you need one. I don't care.
Well, does anybody want to do it? No?
I'll do it.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Ms. Hazard.
I'm hungry.
All right, and then the School Health Advisory Committee, I enjoy that committee. We often have healthy snacks and good speakers and public people come in. Yes, so I'd love to stay on that if that's all right with the board. And Ms. Hazard is my alternate. Does
If somebody would like that,
anybody want to be an alternate? No? All right, then we'll leave that as it is.
What's that, school health?
Yes.
I'll be an alternate if that's okay.
That's fine.
That's all right,
Ms.
okay.
Hazard?
It's at 6 o'clock.
Yeah, and we meet on Mondays as well.
Yep, it's a good day.
Yeah, so actually, we meet when the special ed meets that night as well. I see Mr. Cater coming back. We both go back and forth. All right, and the Technical Advisory Committee, Ms. Young and Dr. Chase were on that. That was going to stay. All right, so I'm just going to, let me just read this so we make it clear for, and if this is not what you agreed to, chime in. All right, Capital Improvement Planning Advisory Committee, Ms. Egan is the board member assigned, and Ms. Hazard is the alternate. The CTE Advisory Committee, Ms. Young is the member assigned, and Dr. Chase is the alternate. Fine and Performing Arts Advisory Committee, Ms. Hazard is the primary, Mr. McOsker is the alternate. The Gifted Advisory Committee, Dr. Chase is the primary, Mr. McOsker is the alternate. Oh, you're on 3 of these. Did you really want to do that? All right, School Health Advisory Committee, I am the primary, Mr. McOsker is the alternate. Special Ed Advisory Committee, Mr. Cater is the primary, and I'm the alternate. And the Technology Advisory Committee, Ms. Young is the primary, and Dr. Chase is the alternate. So, I mean, you're welcome to be the alternate on 3 of them, but if you're not comfortable with that because of the potential commitment, I mean, you don't know, you may never have to go, but you may have to go frequently.
No.
Yeah. So you're okay with that?
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah,
all right.
that's right, I'll cover.
Then if that, everybody, all right. Now we'll move to the fun ones. Come to item 9.02, appoint school board members to serve on the board's standing committees.
Ms. Healy, would you like an action?
On a what? Well, we usually don't vote. I think we can vote on it, but I think we have to vote on the other ones. Yeah. All right, let's take a vote. Everybody, we have a motion?
Move to approve 901 as discussed.
All right. Motion, Mr. McOsker, second by Ms. Egan. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. The standing committees, I think some of them were required to vote because those are actually appointments by the board. The other ones are not quite the same level. All right, 9.02, appoint school board members to serve on the board's standing committees. The standing committees are the Finance and Budget Committee, the Governance Committee, the Joint School Working Committee, Legislative Committee, and the Student Disciplinary Committee. We don't have to make appointments for student disciplinary because those are assigned when we have the monthly meetings. But let's start with the Finance and Budget Committee. The current members are Ms. Hazard, Mr. McOsker, and Ms. Young. Those terms end on June 30th. So what we need is 3 members to be appointed to that committee for July 1st of 2018 to June 30th of 2019.
I'll continue.
You want to vote? Okay, then, I mean, we'll take the volunteers, but then this has to be a vote of the board. So Ms. Young wants to continue? All right.
And then the first thing I have to say is because I've been on this by bylaws for 24 months, I must be removed from the committee unless, I must be removed from the committee.
Okay.
I have interest in staying on the
and
Finance and Budget.
All right, and Ms. Hazard, I just noticed, I hadn't seen this before. This shows that you were on for July 14 to June of 15, and then July 15 to June of 16, and then reappointed. So technically, you've already been on 24 months. as well.
No, it has to
That's
be in
not
the same,
correct?
it has to be within the same 24-month period.
Well, ironically, I was just reading it. That may be something we want to consider amending these, but this specifically says, well, it does say will. Did you notice that, Mr. Gator?
You got it, that's awesome.
Committee members will serve a term of 12 months, not to exceed 24 months or 2 terms. It doesn't say continuously. That's interesting.
It also says that the board may provide a waiver if you want.
Right. Term extensions will be approved by majority vote of the school board. So that can be, the board can vote to extend that, but I had not
Because
studied
Mr.
this
McCosker and I
before.
have served many terms on this committee, and we thought it was back-to-back is how I think we interpreted it.
That's what I thought too, until I actually had it in front of me and I read it this evening.
Yeah, I didn't
So
catch it. I
anyway,
didn't
but
catch
the board can, you can serve if the board, approves an extension. All right, so we have, Ms. Hazard is interested, Ms. Young is interested.
And I'm interested.
Dr. Chase is interested. Is there anyone else? Mr. Cater?
Yes.
You're interested. All right, so we have 4 members who are interested in serving.
And
Did you
I
want-
will certainly bow out.
Okay. All right, well, that makes it easy. We've got 3 members who are interested and 3 slots open. So that would be Mr. Cater, Ms. Young, and Dr. Chase. Do we have a motion to approve those 3 members?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Hazard, second by Mr. McOsker. All in favor of Mr. Cater, Ms. Young, and Dr. Chase being assigned to the Finance and Budget Committee for the July 1st, 2018 to June 30th, 2019 term, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, the Governance Committee. There are no term limits here. And the current members are Ms. Decatur, Ms. Egan, and Ms. Hazard. Is there any interest in continuing, or does anyone have an interest in being in this
I'd like to stay on.
Okay.
I would as well.
This is the Governance Committee. All right, so Ms. Decatur, Ms. Egan, and Ms. Hazard are willing to continue their appointments. Is there anyone that is just really anxious to join this Governance Committee? Hearing none. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Okay, motion to
Put forward.
approve the reappointment of the current members on the Governance Committee.
Second.
By Ms. Egan, second by Dr. Chase. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries unanimously. All right, Joint School Working Committee.
That's not actually.
Oh, it's not up.
Oh, that's not up. Oh,
Only
good.
legislative.
All right.
Only
The Legislative Committee. That's right, we'll get to that in January.
No, Madam Chair, we need to address that tonight because I will.
Oh, that's right.
I will no
That's
longer be
right.
serving on that committee.
There is one opening in the Joint School Working Committee.
So that's where I think I would like to move to, is the joint working committee.
All right, well, that would be from now until December 31st.
December 30th, and then.
Because then all the appointments will end, then
Yep.
they'll be reappointed. All right, any,
So if I would just add that does leave me on 3 standing committees, which I'm totally okay with. But if there is anyone who feels that they would like to serve on the joint schools or the governance, I'd be happy to just share. I'm not asking anyone to. I'm perfectly comfortable serving on these 3 committees. I did it last year.
well, there's,
I wonder if, I don't know whether Ms. Hazard would consider being on that committee or not.
Let me see what happens with legislative, because then I too would be on 3, so I'd like.
all right, well, I mean, I have
Again,
intentionally.
I did this last
Yeah.
year. I'm comfortable with it. I served on them before. I don't want to be a hog.
That is a lot to ask. I've been on the Joint School Working Committee before. I have intentionally not volunteered or put myself on this committee because, the 2 committees, the Joint School and the Finance, have 6 positions altogether, and I thought that would be more fair, equitable, to allow the board members to be that.
Who is on it
But,
and who is not?
well,
So now we have
well, right now, Dr.
McOsker.
Chase is on it.
Right.
And Ms. Decatur's on it, but Ms. Decatur said, and Mr. McOsker, if he gets voted on. But I'd be willing to do that if the board would want me to. I mean, I've been on it before. I think the chairman can be on it, you just can't be the chairman, but I'm never the chairman of those, committees. Actually, I enjoyed it when I was there before, and always enjoy a challenge.
If you can. Or you
And Ms. Egan can always give us some advice. Hmm? So, Mr. Cater, would that work for you if I were on that committee for the rest of this year, and then, well, actually, that's a year.
So are you doing it instead of Mr. Cater, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Is that's all right?
That's
all right. Okay. All right. But I'm not going to be the co-chair, so you'll have to figure that. We'll have whoever's, anybody other than me can be the chair and the co-chair. You all can work it out. All right. So that would be it's Dr. Chase, myself, and Mr. McOsker. All right?
And just to clarify, it's co-chair because the other.
Oh, that's right. Oh, that's
Co-chair,
right.
yeah.
Co-chair with the
Co-chair
supervisor.
together, yeah.
Okay. Well, that will not be me in any event. All right, is there a motion?
Motion to approve the slate.
Legislative is.
Well, we're still on joint school working committee.
Okay.
So we have a motion to approve.
Second.
I think, all right.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries unanimously. That brings us to the Legislative Committee. We have Dr. Chase, Ms. Egan, and Ms. Hazard. Is there any
I'd like to stay on
desire
legislative.
to stay?
Yeah.
Dr. Chase, Ms. Hazard? All right, well, we got 3 volunteers, so
And I think they've been doing a good job, so I'm not,
all in favor of the,
legislative committee.
I was going to say the current members staying, please say aye.
Aye.
Oh, wait a minute.
Who made the motion?
We didn't have a
No, make a
motion.
motion.
Do we
Nobody made the
have, do we
motion.
have to, Missy, do we have to?
Every single time? Well,
let's
Every
just-
one of these? We don't really have to, but go ahead. Make a motion for the
I move
record.
that the legislative committee continue with its FY18 members, Chase, Egan, and Ms. Hazard.
All right, we have a motion.
Second.
And a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, motion carries unanimously. Whew. Now, we don't have to do anything else with the miscellaneous until September.
Yes.
All right.
One is in August.
Well, September 1st, that's right. My goodness. Now that we're through the hard things, we come to approve.
Did you say, what did you say? Now that you're done with the
Yeah,
hard
I
things?
know, that's right.
in
We're
your-
just getting ready for this next one. 9.03, approve the 2019-2020 instructional calendar and the 2020-2001 instructional calendar. All
Motion
right.
to approve.
All right, we have a motion by-
9.03, option C.
All right, let's just pull this up.
Oh, are we there already?
Yes.
I had the privilege of moving this up to an early action item, just so that we can make sure that everyone was here. And yeah, because usually this would have came up at 10 tonight, and so anyway.
And I will second.
All right.
There wasn't a second. I got lost.
We have a motion by Ms. Egan and a second by Mr. Cater, and the option C.
Ms. Hazard.
I'm sorry. Option C, is that correct, Ms. Egan? Ms. Hazard? Yes.
Correct.
And that would have the first semester beginning August 10th, ending September 8th.
12.
Option C?
Yes.
Well, in 1 year, it's August 12th, the following year, it's August 10th.
Oh, boy.
You have to look at the 2019 and then
These are for 2 years.
I'm looking at
2020.
2019.
Oh, all right. Beginning early August. All right, we'll see. I'm wanting to do this for the benefit of the people that don't have this in front of them. All right, for
Is there a way we
2019,
could put it up there?
2020, well, I think
it's
everybody
good.
pretty much knows the area. Begins October 12th, ends December 20th. Professional day on January 6th. And we go into same as option A. The winter break would begin December 23rd, end on January 3rd. The second semester would begin January 7th and May 27th. and the professional day on February 14th is changed to an early release day for all grades. The spring break would begin March 16th and March 20th. And the last day of school would be, oh, that doesn't, 5/27. Okay. Is that, all right. And I don't know if we want to go through the, we can go through the 2021. It's only a few days difference there. That would begin on August 10th. First semester ends December 18th. Professional day, January 4th. The winter break would begin on December 21st and on January 1st. And the second semester would begin January 5th and May 26th. Professional day on February 12th is changed to an early release day for all grades. And the spring break would begin on March 15th and March 19th. The last day of school would be May 26th. All right, so that is the option that is being, has been moved for approval.
I also
Let's-
have a motion.
Okay, Mr. McOsker.
Don't we have to address the initial motion
I
first?
think you take the motions and then you address
Well,
them.
we will have a discussion when we get through whatever options we have. I mean, if there's another motion, I think you can have a substitute motion at any point. Is that?
No, I think we have to hit,
I thought the motions were taken, and then the last motion was discussed first, and then we go into the second motion. That's how I understood Robert's
do we have a
rules.
parliamentarian in the audience here?
Where's Mr.
He's away.
Nelson?
I thought all motions were
All right,
entertained.
who has some, does somebody want to Google Robert's rules?
I mean, if you
I have
go-
a book.
If you go for the substitute, if there's a substitute, I don't know what.
Yes. Yeah, I think he wants to make a substitute motion. I mean, there will be a discussion. It seems for practical purposes, if we're going to discuss, we should discuss it all together, although we could have a discussion now, and then we can have a substitute motion and another discussion later.
I think you can move to table the discussion to have a discussion on the second.
That's all right. We'll, I think our clerk is looking this up for us. Thank you. All right, so I know that the rule is you can't have any discussion before you have a motion, so now we're going to have two motions. All right.
Some use the restroom.
I think you have time.
Excuse me.
I think there is like an indent that tells you.
Index,
This says that once a motion is before a meeting, it must be adopted or rejected by a vote, or the meeting must dispose of the question in some other way before any other business can be introduced.
Okay, we need to look up substitute motions. There, you can make a substitute motion, which would take the place of the initial motion. Then when you do get to the vote, you would vote on the substitute motion first. If it fails, then you would go back to the original motion. So that's, let's see. Substitute motion, is there not an agenda?
I don't understand what perfecting the main motion is.
The substitute motion is changing.
Look up Robert's Rules of Order.
Yeah, but I think we have to,
Substitute
I think
motion.
it has to be either, it's voted up or down, I think, before the,
No, you actually, there's no vote on the main motion. If you have a substitute motion, the first vote will be on the substitute motion.
Well, what this
Then
says
if
is
that
that-
fails, then you go back.
a motion is on the floor, a substitute motion is introduced, presented. Perfecting the main motion comes next. The moderator calls for amendments to the main motion. The amendments may be debated. Nothing else is in order. Once the amendment process is over for the main motion, the moderator declares the motion perfected, which is equivalent to closing debate on the main motion. Then you have to perfect the substitute motion. And then the question before the body comes up. The moderator puts the question before the body, shall the substitute motion become the main motion? So then I guess we have to vote on making his substitute motion the main motion. So it would have,
But he has to make it before we can do that.
Like other amendments.
Right.
I mean, you You can't vote on it until it's,
Right, well, yeah, that's what the main motion's on the floor, the substitute motion is presented, which was his motion. Then whatever perfecting the main motion is what we have to do next. Daryl's not allowed to take vacation anymore. And this isn't Robert's rules either, and I know that's what we're governed by, so.
Okay, so with all things being fair, we're all going to discuss all of the sides. Can we defer to something and get moving, or what do we think? Or do
We can go on to something else.
well, do we have somebody, I mean, I can look this up, but I'm going to have to take a break so I can do the research.
Your vice chair can run the meeting now.
Well, I want to be participating in the meeting. I don't want to just,
Why don't we take a recess of a few minutes?
Point of privilege, 5-minute recess
all right, I'll do the research.
for research on Robert's rules.
Five minutes. All right, we are back in business. And the consensus is that we will follow the procedure that we initially discussed, which is we are going to allow the substitute motion, and we will have a discussion on both the motions on the floor. The rules, as we've just reviewed them, actually provide for 2 substitute motions. So at this point, we're going to allow Mr. McOsker to give his substitute motion. If there's anyone that wants to make a second substitute motion, it would have to be different from the original and the substitute. Then they can. Now, there's only 3 choices, so maximum 4. Oh, yeah, 4, whatever. Mr. McOsker, why don't you give us your substitute motion?
Yes, I'd like to propose a substitute motion for a post-Labor Day start. Has no option number, it's just a post-Labor Day start calendar for both 2019 and 2020 and 2020-21.
All right, so we have a substitute motion for a post-Labor Day start for the 2 years that are under discussion. Is there a second to that motion? Hearing none, that motion fails. All right, we're back to the original motion for pre-Labor Day start, option C. Any discussion? Ms. Egan, I'm going to start with you and just go down the line so everybody can have an opportunity to give their
I think
comments.
everybody knows my position on this and why I'm doing it. It's not because other people are doing it or anything else. I've heard from my constituents. I've heard from the teachers in my district. And while all of you have your people that you have to represent, I'm representing mine. And I apologize to those the small group of people that reached out to me opposing this, but the support for it was a lot more than the opposition to it. So as I always do and will continue to do, the majority of my district would like the pre-Labor Day start, and that is what I'm voting for.
All right, Dr. Chase.
Yeah, this has been a difficult decision. I've heard from lots of people on both sides of the issue, and I'm sure each of us kind of bring our lens, and my lens is that of an educator. And so in pursuing this question, I have really focused on the question of instruction. I began by calling a number of principals in my district and asking them if there was any instructional reason for them to favor one calendar over the other. I heard no instructional reasons in favor of starting after Labor Day. However, I heard a number of instructional reasons for starting before Labor Day. From elementary and middle school administrators, they thought that having spring break at the end of the third quarter would help them a lot. They give benchmark tests at the end of that quarter, and then having the break after that gives them time to process data in order to identify our students who are struggling and plan remediation for them in advance of the SOLs. So it's not just about AP students. Middle and high school administrators thought having midterm exams before break would be great. Students would not have the 10-day break right before midterms. High school administrators noted that our students are at a disadvantage for AP exams because they have 2 weeks less instructional time than students in many other parts of the country. I've heard a lot of claims about research and AP exam performance. I did a quick literature search and found that, like much applied correlational research, it is inconclusive. There are just too many variables that researchers cannot control. However, there is well over 100 years of basic experimental research in the area of learning and memory that is quite clear that increased study time improves learning and memory. I've also heard that if it isn't broken, we don't need to fix it. I would note that last year we had students filling 4,273 advanced placement seats. When I looked at the test results, I found that only 2,307 scores would be eligible for college credit. That means that we had only about a 54% pass rate. I have to say that looks broken to me. And I don't know if the earlier start time will fix it, but I think it's certainly worth a try. And finally, I'd just sort of like to say the negative comments about it only being AP students. Would you say it's only football players or only special ed kids? I think we are a learning community and we should care about all of our students.
Thank you, Dr. Chase. Mr. McOsker.
Okay, well, that's great. So first, I'd like to, like many of our board members, thanks. I really appreciate both sides of the argument that came to my email and on the street. So it's a good thing. It was a healthy debate, and I do appreciate it. Both sides have merit. But I do have, I thought about this, and I do have, I call it McOsker's top 10 reasons why I don't support a pre-Labor Day. And I'm going to give them to you. And I have them written down, and we'll submit them for the record. So my top 10 reasons not to support a pre-Labor Day and early August start here at Stafford County Public Schools. 1, testing. As we've heard many before, let's get back to teaching, because there is absolutely no testing data to support any benefit from starting before Labor Day. Whether it be AP, IB, midterms, or finals, I can find no conclusive evidence to support a pre-Labor Day start that are going to help test scores. Many in academia are actually shifting away from midterm and final exams anyway. Loudoun and Montgomery County have removed the requirement to have all high school teachers give midterm and final exams as part of a push towards a more project-based learning, such as hands-on experimentation and simulations, which educators believe prepare students for life outside academia. We call that 21st century learning here in Stafford County Public Schools. Under the old requirement, in Loudoun, the tests were worth 20% of a student's grade, took up to 2 weeks of school given in all classes, not just core academic subjects. And we're trying to and according to the principal of Montgomery, we're trying to make sure that students have 21st century skills they need for a modern workforce, which is not necessarily sitting for a long test. And rethinking the role and the value of exams in 2 of Washington's area's jurisdictions that do very well on testing, I might add, and educators nationally have voiced broad concerns about students being tested too much and the toll it takes on instructional time. And lastly, during the schedule, everyone's trying to jockey. We still have 14 early releases for the kids. Now, I do understand, and I've talked to the teachers at the elementary school level, that they do need a couple of early releases for stuff, but 14 early releases? I mean, heck, we could add 4 or 5 days into the calendar for more spring break, for more just by getting rid of the early releases. And I might add, to talk about our county to the north, Prince William has no early releases for their school division. So, number 2, not a fun bus ride, kids. Right now, we have 266 buses in Stafford County Public School fleet. 196 are the mainstream buses, and 66 buses are for special needs. And then we have 4 other. Only 12 of the 196 mainstream buses have air conditioning, while 51 of the 66 special needs ones have air conditioning. So, if this pre-Labor Day calendar is approved, we will have 1 year to come up with the money to retrofit our buses, which I think is the right thing to do. Remember, many of our kids have up to an hour bus ride and 3 to 5 p.m. in August without air conditioning. That's not going to be good for anybody. And our children may become heat casualties without this air conditioning. Number 3, upgrading buses costs money. Best spent on other things like employee bonuses, benefits, and other infrastructure projects. According to the Stafford County Public Schools Department of Transportation, retrofitting buses with AC units will be $10,000 per bus. So, if we retrofit our remaining 169 buses, that's 154 mainstream and 15 special needs, the cost is $1.6 million. Number 4, it's really hot in mid-August. With an average temperature of approximately 87 degrees and with an average humidity of 92, it's hot. Some classes such as PE, elementary, middle, noon recess for the kids will not likely be held outside with a wet bulb of black. If they do, they'll have to take precautions, which is water, breaks, shade. Also expect our buses to overheat and increased maintenance due to the wear and tear of the August heat. We already have, and lastly on this point, we already have a problem hiring our bus drivers. For the month of August, that even though we gave them a nice pay raise, it's going to be a tough sell. Number 5, school electric bills cooling will skyrocket. Schools will have to turn down the AC in the other 31 schools in late July or very early August in order to cool them down for an early August opening. You can't just cool a large space in a matter of hours like you do in your house. So Stafford County Public Schools will not only have increased electricity costs across the division, increased bus costs across the division, but I'm not confident that our air conditioning units can handle the strain of August heat and humidity. They've never had to do that. Replacement AC units are very expensive, and just a few of these units in a few of our 31 buildings could expend a good portion of our precious CIP infrastructure dollars, which are really the must-do fixes. Now, air conditioning will become a must-do fix. It's been mentioned before, number 6, Virginia law dictates a post-Labor Day start. Stafford County Public Schools may end up switching back and forth for opposed to a pre-Labor Day start since we must meet the requirements of Virginia state waiver. Each year, we must meet this requirement for a pre-Labor Day start. The waiver is 1, be surrounded by districts starting pre-Labor Day. We are not. Fredericksburg City is still on a post-Labor Day start. 2, have an average of 8 days of school canceled or missed due to snow, rain, ice, etc. over a 5-year period within a 10-year period. Kind of a difficult equation, but the long story short was that in 2009 and 2010, I think we all remember our big giant snowstorm of 59 inches in this area. That is still within this 10-day window, and that is what a lot of our districts are counting on, that big snowstorm to push them through and meet this second requirement of having 5 missed days within the 10-year thing. Once that big waiver year falls out of the window next year, it's going to be really hard for us to start on this waiver unless the law is passed. And I really don't want to flip-flop back and forth as a county. I don't think our parents, I don't think our constituents, and I don't think the kids deserve it. So we had a speaker, I didn't verify that information, but we did have a speaker talk about Spotsylvania County flipping back and forth over the last 10 years. Number 7, attendance may plummet in August. Some jurisdictions report that when a school starts in the traditional summer, attendance plummets. This could be attributed to our kids having commitments in August or to visit family or possibly just families who just want a traditional summer experience. If this is correct, the benefit of more teaching days and more learning days and more days really doesn't hold any water. Number 8, even though this is a very, very weak one, I give this a C-, tourism and jobs in Stafford. So I'm not really sure how much the 28,000 kids back to school in early August will affect tourism in Stafford, but the summer-based employers and the small businesses that employ our kids may have an employment issues, lifeguards, restaurant, local stores. Right now, our kids in Stafford, they kind of have a monopoly because they have the advantage of being the only kids available in August to work, which my kids do, so during the day. So, because all the other kids are back to work in their high schools, right? So. And we did hear tonight that, teachers have jobs, they have planned jobs in August, and employees, so I'd like to hear more about that, no matter what happens here, to try to help out. Number 9, we already lead the region in most testing scores, so to coin a phrase from Jimmy Carter's Director of Office of Management and Budget, Bert Lance, we can save the government billions by just following the motto, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Mr. Lance gets credit for that phrase. He found that the government spent billions fixing things that just aren't broke. Good job, Mr. Lance. Number 10, lastly, and then I'll be quiet, I listened to my mom.
You sure?
I remember my mom telling me, don't do it just because everyone else is doing it. Do what's right. So I may be the minority on this board, which I think I am right now, but I really don't think moving to a post or a pre-Labor Day school calendar is going to be the right fit for Stafford County Schools. We're a special place. We're an anomaly. Besides costing, I see it costing about $2.5 million the first year, and then there's going to be a recurring cost. And I'll tell you that is going to come out of Ferry Farm. That's going to come out of other things that we can spend money on in the infrastructure budget. And I just don't see, with the state of the money right now that we're in, and we're not looking towards a great year next year, this is extra money that I think we're wasting on an early start. And I hope, if we do go to the start, and I hope the test scores rise, and I hope everyone, it's unicorns and it's rainbows. I really do, because that looks like we're going that way anyway. But I just thought, I'm not a guy that comes up here on this board. I've been here for 6 years. And whether it's a cell phone policy that I voted no for over and over and over again, or it's something like this that I started out and I said no. I've done my research, and this is my thought, and this is my stance on it, and that's why I came here tonight with my top 10 reasons. I'll give it to you, and I'm going to post it on the board, and I'm not going to flip-flop on my what I think is right as representing the George Washington District. So, there.
Thank you, Mr. McOsker. Ms. Hazard?
Okay.
We'll work our way back.
Okay. Okay, that was on and off. Since I seconded the motion and have spoken previously, my reasons for supporting a pre-Labor Day start have become, there's partly some personal, some logistical, so I'll just go through those. First and foremost, I think that the school board is charged with offering 180 days of quality instruction to our students. I believe that can best be accomplished by starting the year earlier. Based on my walks through schools and various times, I think that the best instructional time that we can give to students is to start earlier, to prepare them for SATs, other tests that go on. Also, speaking to the CTE students, all of their required hours need to be done, and they test mid-May as well. So I believe that this board, our job is educational and to provide the best experience for every student. And that includes our ESL learners, our special education students, our AP, but every student needs to have. And sometimes there are times that a student is struggling in a class and they need that extra week or 2 weeks to learn a concept. I have kids, most of you, if you know Charlotte, hates math. The longer time, as much as she hated to be in class, the more time she needed for those concepts. So as I became, I can say probably early on in my career as a Stafford County Public School parent, I may not have seen the need for this. As I became a parent of a high schooler, it became very apparent to me that there is an advantage to those students. Opportunities lost in June. I know the Naval Academy high school kids could not go to that summer program this summer. I had 2 parents reach out to me on that. I believe that our high schoolers are the ones that are just about to launch into the world, and as many opportunities we can give to them to pursue whatever path that is, that we need to have that instruction early. Yes, I think I hear a lot about tests, but no matter what we do later in life, whether it's certificates, ASVAB, other things, there is going to be testing. And we have to teach our kids how to use that time and how to do it well. And I believe the more time we have pre-testing, pre-end of the year, also the mindset for summer, I believe that pre-Labor Day will have a great impact on Stafford County Public Schools on many levels. And I too have spoken to many people through these weeks and actually years. So I appreciate everybody who has reached out. It is a difficult decision. Change is difficult. And I really appreciate everything that was sent, but it also helped me to mold my personal beliefs with also the stories that you have shared. So to those who wrote, thank you very much.
Ms. Decatur.
Oh, you guys are so eloquent.
Not really.
So I'll just start by saying that when this was brought to the board yet again, as you guys like to point out, I was completely against having a conversation about it yet again. Because again, I too believe that if it's not broken, we don't need to spend the time working on fixing something that isn't broken. As I talked or became open to the conversation and talked with more teachers and parents and students and people, taxpayers, I became somewhat neutral. And I still consider myself somewhat of a neutral party because I have a 3-year-old and I don't even want to think about him going to school, never mind thinking about him going to school in August. But it's not just about my little boy. It's about all of the students in Stafford. And so I'll go through just a couple of things that were compelling and concerning. One of the compelling items for me was instructional alignment, not necessarily test scores, because we've all heard, but the alignment of the calendar. It just makes sense to complete the semester and take your break and enjoy your break. Everybody's talking about enjoying your summer, but anyways, you get the point. And additionally, ending school when SOLs are complete. Now, I will say that a good teacher will teach until school is over, but we all know how it goes. A concern that I heard was that with the school year starting earlier, sports would then start practicing earlier, and I want to assure people that that's not the case. That will not happen. They will simply practice as they usually would, before or after school, when they would have typically started. I do believe this allows Stafford to be more competitive with our teacher recruiting, which we all know is a big issue. And another thing that I heard was that with the high schoolers and their summer jobs, and again, with all of these arguments, there's a flip side to every coin, right? So I know that a lot of these kids are getting beat out by college students coming home soon and not getting the summer jobs to start with. So there's also that. I agree that Stafford has much larger issues to be working on, and as I talked, I just felt that this was a piece of the puzzle that really needed to be worked on. I did poll SEA members, just for your information. Of those that participated in the poll, 68% preferred a pre-Labor Day start. A majority of the parents that I spoke with in my district preferred a Labor Day start. And I polled my friends on Facebook, and because Facebook's where it's at. I specifically asked people who are currently on the pre-Labor Day schedule to give me their pros and cons, and I just, I got even more positive feedback on the pre-Labor Day start, and it was just information that I couldn't ignore. Here are some of my concerns that I would like to be addressed, because it seems to me that we are moving towards a pre-Labor Day start. Some questions that arose in emails that I got were, how will 11-month employees be reimbursed? That's above my pay grade, but I would like to know the answer. Obviously, retrofitting buses. And I would like to add that on the 7-year cyclic replacements, all of our new buses that have been and will be purchased do have AC. I would like to have seen better communication. I'm sorry that I'm talking so slow, but I'm also reading. better communication, because I agree that parents really didn't know that this, and some might still be caught off guard, and for that, I really do feel bad. Some people probably still have no idea that we're up here discussing that. Communication really, really needs to be worked on with this and all things that are big in our county. And the last thing that I will leave you with, and I would ask for, some of the teachers that I talked to are really concerned about this first summer. And I would really like to see some measures to help with how harsh that first summer is going to be. Can we use banked snow days to release early at the end of the year? Anything to give our teachers and our kids a longer first summer, so that they're not missing out on those days, because our summer is going to be the same. They're not going to miss out as we get going, but the first one is going to be rough, and I'd like to see. I'd also maybe like to see leniency for absences in August for people who already have vacations planned and paid for, but we can get there when we get there. So thank you, guys.
Thank you, Ms. Decatur. Ms. Young.
Oh.
Your turn.
Well, hello, everyone. I sound like 8 Picket Lane for a minute there. So it is about improving scores, right? And we are sorry that parents and the community feels that the communication did not go out correctly. I'm not in charge of that, but I do apologize for that. I think that, ditto about the communication, that's very, very important, so individuals could start making decisions early for pre-labor start or post-labor start. But yeah, it's about improving scores. I did hear, I got a lot of emails, and I was diligently answering 1 o'clock in the morning, and I was like, I can't do this. So thank you all for all the emails, the pros and the cons. I hear a lot about convenience. I hear words like traditional, refuge, leave it as it is, no change. If it's not broke, don't fix it. But for those that know me, I went to an all-year school in the Netherlands, and so I'm used to being in school. And it does something to your brain and to your mind, leaving less time stagnant. I know a lot of teachers, when they start in September, they have to spend so much time, especially with the little ones, elementary, drilling the same things that they started in May, and it takes a long time to get that in for them to get going. But it's not about me, and it's not about just one district. It's about all the students. It's about the parents, it's about our community, making us smarter, making us more competitive. It's not just about AP, IB, or exams, but to benefit a larger amount of our population that is not seen, and that they think that we don't care about them. I had some statistics that I received from someone. So we have, I know, yes, it's about equity and diversity, yes. But white students, 62% passing rate, and then we have Asians are also, maybe 2 or 3% behind, but we had Black and Hispanic students, they're at 40% and 54%. Sometimes in these numbers, these AP and IB and all these numbers, we don't see those numbers. You know why? Because some of these students don't even try out for these things because they feel that they won't accomplish it or they don't have the money for it. So we need to take that into consideration, that it's about uplifting all the students, not just the ones that we're complaining about. It's our vacation time, the buses are too hot. We will make adjustments. And this is about making sure that have strategic changes and not be scared of making a change. If it doesn't work, we'll figure something out. But we need to move ahead and try to help all students. I'm not gonna belabor it very long, but yeah, we need to think strategically, and we'll have a district innovation and strategic change. And as some say, don't leave any student behind. We want to increase all scores, not only SOL, but all subject areas. And hopefully they get into the swing of things. I know it's a change for some parents. Pool, vacation, Senate, all of that is great, but let's think first about our students, what's best for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Young. I can't remember how many times this has come to the board, and it's always a divided vote. Sounds like this may be the year it changes, and I have to say that I'm going to be voting in the minority with Mr. McOsker on this one, because I do have a number of questions that I don't feel have been adequately addressed. And we're saying, okay, a year from now, we're going to do this, but we haven't addressed how are we going to fund the buses. I think it would be cruel and possibly a detriment to put our students on unair-conditioned buses in early August, throughout August. We have some days in September that are bad, but many fewer than there are in August. And the students that ride in the summer school, have, problems as well. So I think if this does pass, that this board needs to take serious note of the need to provide for the welfare of those students. It's gonna cost a lot, but it really needs to be addressed. I also have concerns about the athletes. Right now in August, they practice early in the morning before it gets too hot. We start high school buses about 6:30 in the morning. So I don't know, when we would expect them to be doing the athletics but for after school. And the band practices outside as well, and I'm sure there are other activities. So I think that's something that we as a school system are going to need to address and perhaps make some mandatory changes in that to protect the students. We have the C5W, so we're going to need to consider that wellness if we start this early. And I know other districts do it, and perhaps we can find out from them, how it works. But I'm really not concerned about other districts. I'm concerned about Stafford County. I think you all noticed that tonight there were a number of speakers from my district, the Rock Hill district, who overwhelmingly have, communicated to me that they prefer a post-Labor Day start. I've gotten, comments from my residents as well that prefer a pre-Labor Day, but the most significant portion in the Rock Hill district has been for the post-Labor Day. I've always supported the post-Labor Day. That is not why I'm supporting the post-Labor Day now. It's because I have not heard compelling reasons to change this. I appreciate Dr. Benson when he brought this to us saying there is no data that shows that our test scores will improve. And that's very different from the last couple times it came to us where we were told that test scores are going to improve if you start early. Well, I think some of the members of the public challenged that statement, and it was eventually backed off from. But I can't support it because I have not heard compelling reasons to change. Although I will tell you, as a parent, I've always personally preferred pre-Labor Day. And having a child in the system, I'd like to be out early, get started early, but then I drove my child to school every day. My child never rode a school bus to school, or else she drove herself. If she were on a school bus, I wouldn't have allowed it in August. But this isn't about me personally. This is about me being the representative of the Rock Hill District. And I feel that from what I've heard from my Rock Hill residents, it's not something that they want done, and I see no reason to change it at this point. So I will join you in the minority. I'm not going to go through 10 reasons. I didn't, write them all down, but I do agree with many of them, and I appreciate you preparing that for the record, Mr. McOsker. All right. Well, if that's enough discussion, Why don't we call for the vote? All in favor of the approval for the 1920 and 2021 calendar years pre-Labor Day start, option C, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
No. Madam Clerk?
Dr. Chase?
Aye.
Ms. Decatur? Aye. Ms. Egan?
Yes.
Ms. Hazard?
Aye.
Ms. Healy?
No.
Mr. McCosker?
No.
Ms. Young?
C.
Madam Chair, motion passes 5-2.
Okay, thank you. All right, we can now move on. 9.04, approve an application for the 2018-2019 funding under the Every Student Succeeds Act, consolidated titles 1, 2, 3, and 4, Parts A. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve 9.04.
Second.
Okay, motion by Ms. Egan, second by Ms. Hazard. Any substitute motions? No, you're none. Any discussion?
I would just like to say for I think it's the fourth year in a row, Ferry Farm fell, 5.5 points under, our number 5 or our number 6 or our number 7 school. So I just want to make sure that that's said for the record, that, we always are around 34, 35, 36, and I know that the staff polls Ferry Farm every year, and I do appreciate that, but I just want that said for the record. That's it.
All right, so Ferry Farms would not be included in that. Is that the point you're making?
The point I'm making is that Ferry Farm is always very, very close. 6% is not a lot of kids.
Okay.
Ms. Healy?
All right, Ms.
If I could just-
Hazard.
And I think just something we as a community need to recognize. I mean, what, as Mr. McCosker said, right now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 7 schools that are as our elementary schools. And as Dr. Chase and I have spoken, I don't think that we have the measures for middle school. And so I think we need to recognize as a community, for some people, that we are a changing community and there are a lot of needs. And we need to just be looking into this. I am not adverse in the future examining the middle school examination, or at least knowing what the percentages are at our middle schools.
Okay, that would be for another year. Ms. Young,
Right,
do you have
no, I
something?
just said in the future,
Okay,
I would just
yes.
like to examine
We can
that.
start with next year.
So my comment, which has always been the same, Hampton Oaks Elementary School at 60.9%. That's unacceptable. There needs to be a change. And look at Kate Waller-Barrett. We need to do something about that. Whitewater. We need to do something about those. Very high.
Well, what this
Extremely high.
proposal is going to do is give these schools additional resources that the schools that don't have these percentages will not have. So that's something that,
So additional resources will help, Madam Chair, but the fact that it's at this high, it needs to be across the board, shared, and it shouldn't be this high. This is a redistricting issue here.
well, we may have that opportunity coming up next year for a county-wide redistricting. But that's not on the agenda this evening. The agenda is to approve the application.
Thank you, I'm sorry, I just needed to,
Well, that's fine, but it's
Thank you.
good. We can get the preview out. Next year,
we need to communicate that
countywide.
better. So where's our communications person?
Front
Okay.
row, front and center. All right, Dr. Chase, did you have anything? No, anyone else? No? All in favor of the motion to approve the application, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries unanimously. 9.05, approve the acting superintendent's proposed revisions to policies and regulations as reviewed by the superintendent and the director of safety, security, and risk management. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve 9.05.
Motion by Ms. Egan, do we have a second? Second. Second by Ms. Hazard. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. 9.06, approve the acting superintendent's proposed revisions to policies and regulations as reviewed by the executive director of technology. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve 9.06.
All right. Motion by Ms.
Second.
Egan, second by whom?
Pam,
By Ms. Young.
technology.
All right. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. 9.07, approve the funding for the remaining FY 18-19 infrastructure project relocation of modular classroom and receive an update on project funding with FY18 operational savings.
Madam Chair, would you like to receive the update first, or would you prefer a motion?
Well, these are two, it really is
It's two separate.
two separate items. I don't.
That's why
I
I was
wasn't
asking.
here when this agenda came out, so I would have separated it. And unless there's an update on the project funding with the operational savings that affects the infrastructure. I mean, the update, does that require any action from the board?
I don't think so.
Does it affect the funding for the trailer? No, so. Why did this get on here?
Well, no, we're going to find out. I'm going to make a motion.
Well, why don't we
Okay.
take the motion that requires
Okay.
action
I
first?
just wanted to make sure that I wasn't trying to be
Okay, yeah,
difficult.
I was out of the country.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the funding for the remaining FY 18-19 infrastructure project, the relocation of the modular classroom to Hartwood Elementary School.
All right, we have a
And
motion.
I'll stop there.
All right, we have a motion to approve by Ms. Hazard, second by Ms. Egan. Any discussion? Any substitute motion or discussion?
I'm willing to speak to it.
All right.
Okay.
We'll start with you, Ms. Hazard.
Okay. I guess as we discussed last time, I think there was some confusion that potentially only if moving the preschool would allow the appropriate space at Hartwood Elementary School. I have tried to reach out to board members and share that at Hartwood, we currently are adding a first grade teacher and a second grade teacher and another ESL teacher. Currently, there is no intervention services are conducted in the hallways. We also, our AP, our assistant principal, doesn't have an office as it was converted for special education meeting space. Hartwood doesn't have a teacher workroom or lunchroom, and the computer room was converted several years ago. We do provide our nursing mothers a space that we would like to maintain at the school. I believe this trailer will allow some flexibility within the school. It pains me that I think the preschool will have to move because I hate moving those kids, but I don't see that there's any other option. But then we're still looking for 2 to 3 additional classrooms, and I think that that trailer space may allow us not to have to put classes out there, but some of these intervention, these services would be best out there. Is it my favorite, but I think it is in the best interest of kids to allow students not to be meeting in the halls, for there to be places to have private meetings for special education. And I think that this space can assist in that while we convert possibly art and music rooms, unfortunately, to accommodate the extra ones. Of course, Hartwood is part of the class size reduction, and if we do not meet the lower standards for students, we will have to turn in, I believe it's like $150,000, and I would hate for us to do that when I believe that this trailer will provide hopefully some ability for us to get there until we get Fredericksburg, and in a year, hopefully, re-examine things across our division.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Mr. McOsker?
Yeah, so the attachment 2, HES portable, I just wanted to make sure that, so we asked that our alternatives come back for the trailer because, even though I just don't think we should, because remember the last meeting and the meeting before, it was kind of like, here's a trailer, it kind of popped up out of nowhere, and we wanted some data on why we're just going to throw a trailer out there. Now, option 1, so the alternatives that were presented were, the option 1 was relocate the ECSE classroom from Hartwood to Gary Melchers and upgrade 2 classrooms for $37,000.
Yeah.
And then as the population continues to grow, upgrading these 2 classrooms would be needed. So that was an option. Then option 2 was relocate the ESCE classroom from Hartwood to an existing upgraded classroom at Gary Melchers Complex. Evaluate the program and the need in 2018, and then required convert 2 classrooms. And then option 3 was kind of the same as option 2, except move 2 classrooms to Conway or Rock Hill as needed. determined based on the need. So it's not, so I don't think that the actual agenda item reads correctly, and I guess that's my fault in that we really do have to approve an option, I think, whether it's option 1, option 2, option 3, option 4, option 5 on the Hartwood trailer.
Well, no, not necessarily. I mean, if none of the options is approved, then the trailer won't go there. That's always an option.
That is also
No action.
No action. So I wondered, was the original motion, was it option 1?
Actually, the original motion was for flexibility because many of these options talk about moving them to Conway or Rock Hill. I don't know what the special need, whether they can move them or not. So really, I am asking for flexibility because we need to find 3 to 3.5 classrooms at Hartwood to put people. I think the preschool is moving. I believe that that is not my decision as a board member. I believe that Ms. Johnson and her staff should determine the best place for the preschool. I think she believes it probably will be moving, but is it Melcher's? We don't know that today. I am just asking for flexibility to be able to use that space really for pull-out and other services so we can start converting some rooms at Hartwood into classrooms that we need for first and second grade. And as I've noted in the past, kindergarten numbers have not even come in yet, and we are under class size reduction. We could need another room in August, and that's of concern to me.
Mr. Gator.
I just opened up attachment 2, and I just want to make sure that everyone has indeed read that. Hartwood Elementary School is projected to be the highest utilized elementary school in the county for the 2018-19 school year. This school is also projected to be over 110% of capacity for the next 10 years, with continuous year-over-year growth forecasted. Based on 2018-19 grade level projections, if either the first or second grades have 2 more students than projected, an additional classroom would be needed for each respective grade. And I won't carry on because I think you get the picture. So as a board, I think we need to do whatever we can to relieve Hartwood.
Dr. Chase.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my only concern is that we are talking about this redistricting and the purchase of the Pam Kale Early Education Center.
Right.
So I'm not real clear if what Ms. Decatur just read would still be valid after that redistricting. So I'm just not clear on that.
If we fail at our mission, it would be valid. However, I do not believe we will fail because the whole point in redistricting is to spread out the population where the seats are available in the schools.
Yeah,
Because
and I would
redistricting is so
I would
easy.
I would just like to add that first of all, we don't even have redistricting on. I mean, we have discussed it. I think it's in the foreseeable future, but we haven't talked about it or when it's going to be. And I would just reiterate that this is for the 2018-19 school year, these projections. So what are they going to do while we decide what we're going to do? These are the kids we're talking about. Come on, guys.
Any other comments? I would just like to ask Mr. Haran a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Have you?
Mayor of Hartwood.
Oh, it's getting late. Have you looked at the projections for the other elementary schools?
We have.
Okay, and are there any other that are going to be
Obviously,
at capacity?
in the projections, there are several concerns, but Hartwood was the one that we felt was the in most dire need, as we articulated in the particular attachment.
When you say we, who was we?
Staff, myself, Mr. Townsend.
Okay,
When we
and
looked,
what
we
were the other
developed these.
schools that you identified as having?
Rocky Run was very high, and I want to say we had concerns with Winding Creek.
Winding Creek.
Yes, ma'am. And so, again, we felt Hartwood was the one, and that's why we originally made the recommendation and put it on the list to move the modular. So that still is our recommendation as is articulated in the attachment number 2. We provided alternatives, and those are the list of those different options, which if the board chooses not to move the modular, that we could try and mitigate some of those issues we feel are going to occur or are occurring and will occur at Hartwood. So those are the options I think we tried to answer to the board at their request.
Is there any possibility that Rocky Run or Winding Creek will be in a position where they're going to lose a, one of their classrooms or their art or music or one of the those rooms to a classroom?
Well,
is this? I just wanted to make.
Absolutely, there is, because just in the same uncertainty with the projections, there's some percentage that we could certainly be off. So there is that capability. But I would look at Winding Creek and Rock Hill, and we did when we
Excuse
looked
me,
at
it's Rocky Run.
I'm sorry, Rocky Run. Rocky
But you
Run
can look at
and-
Rock Hill as well. There's room there.
Yes,
We need some more students there.
They're newer facilities, and they do have additional room. Hartwood is a very old facility, and it's just harder. It's antiquated certain spaces, and I believe, it's my opinion, that Rocky Run and Winding Creek have a little bit more flexibility because of the more modern facility they are to be able to address some of that overcrowding. But again, we feel Hartwood was the one, and that's why we just made that recommendation.
I had just one more question I have. In our redistricting policy, are you familiar with that?
I am, but I don't know it verbatim.
Okay. Well, in that redistricting policy, I believe there's a provision that says the superintendent has authority to do a
Spot redistricting.
small redistricting, and is it under 50?
5%.
It's under a percentage.
5%.
Yes,
So
correct.
has that been considered here as part of this
and I think
solution?
the reason why staff, myself, and Mr. Townsend didn't bring it up is because we felt with the looming potential for a more larger scale redistricting coming up, assuming certain things fell into place. Again, a big assumption, but we assumed that. We felt that the impact of trying to do that relative to funding the use of a modular that we own that's not being used for any purpose at Colonial Forge, that was the lesser of two I don't want to say evils.
Choices.
Yes, choices. Yes, ma'am.
All right, I was just wondering about that, because that is something that, if you're not intimately familiar with the redistricting policy, you may not be aware that the superintendent has that authority. I think it's been invoked once that I can.
Madam Chair, can I ask a quick question while
Yes.
Mr. Haran is here? Do we also have a policy that says that once we've moved a group of students that we can't move them again for a certain amount of time?
No, that certainly is not a policy, but it's something that we desire not to do. So I think in most of the redistricting efforts that I've been involved in since I've been here, it's one of those things that we strive, the board strives to do, and it's one of the things that the board considers when we follow on with another redistricting effort, not to move those students within a certain
What do we
period
look at,
of time.
like 5 years?
It depends on what level. At the elementary school, 5 is a great optimal, because you've had some of those kindergartners are now out, and some of those things happen. But in middle school, it's a little different. It's 3 years, and so, but.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting we do that. I'm just suggesting it's an option that, could be considered, but it's not among the options that were presented to the board. So that's all.
Correct.
Thank you, Mr.
Yes,
Haran.
ma'am.
All right, any other discussion? We'll call for the question. All in favor of the motion to approve funding of the trailer to Hartwood Elementary, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? No.
No.
Madam Clerk?
Dr. Chase?
No.
Ms. Decatur?
Aye.
Ms. Egan?
Yes.
Ms. Hazard?
Yes.
Ms. Healy?
No.
Mr. McCosker?
No.
Ms. Young?
No.
Madam Chair, motion fails by a vote of 4 to 3.
All right. Now,
So an empty trailer is now.
what are we going to do about this update? Do you want to give us this now, or you all want to read it about it?
I just wanted to, you have the information in front of you. And so we've been very successful to start to march down the list. You can see to date, the revised, the North Stafford Commons, which is number 12 on that list. We funded up to that project. We fully expect to fund 3 or 4 more. I would like to point out to you that I've inserted a project on that list right below the North Stafford Commons.
Colonial Forge?
Yes, and I want to, if you have any questions on that, we ran into some poor soils out there, which our geotech report, not ours, but the contractor's geotech report, did not discover. And when we had the large equipment on the track, the sub-base started to fail significantly. And so, I'm sorry, ma'am?
You sent an email.
No, this is
It's a new one, because it was 50
This is
grand.
different, yes, sir.
Yeah, it was
Yes, sir.
55 or whatever,
That's correct. So,
70.
so if some of you board members are familiar, we had these issues that propped up at Brook Point during the track, as well as the tennis courts at Brook Point, where we found significant poor soils underneath, and we did a method called a full-depth reclamation, which is a term that's used to stabilize the soil. It's a new process, fairly new, within the last 5 or 6 years, being done a lot. And so I know it's a significant amount of money, but we are knee-deep, no pun intended, into that project. And we will continue the limit. This is a high water mark in terms of not to exceed. We are still working today and tonight and tomorrow to bring that price down. So the price will come down. I just don't know exactly how much. So that's new, and I wanted the board to be aware of that, to make sure you are comfortable with that.
Are there any questions for Mr. Horan?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I asked this last time we talked about, I believe it was this track. Was there any warranty or anything from the people that did this track to start with?
Well, the track was originally built in 1999.
Okay.
So, no,
It's not a lifetime guarantee.
that's correct.
Got it.
How about piggybacking off of this?
Bring it up. We're a team, guys, you know?
Really?
I am,
Controversy will bring us closer.
I'm just gonna, and I'm not digging here, but, you know, we do have buses that we have to get air conditioning on now. I would just ask you to come up with some sort of plan to.
For the buses?
Yeah, just start thinking. I know you've been thinking about it
can.
probably, but.
Absolutely.
I mean,
We have an idea.
and I know that's if the board, I'm asking, if there's 4 members on the board, to just start thinking about it, because it's gonna cost,
Yes, sir.
you know, okay.
Okay, thank you.
In fact, if we have any funds left over this year that's
Would be-
carryover, it's something we certainly could ask the supervisors to approve.
Absolutely.
So keep that in mind.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Go along. Thank you. All right. Whew, that brings us to information items, quite a list here. 10.01, authorize the school board chair to sign the annual Virginia High School League insurance applications for the 2018-2019 school year. As far as I know, there's no change in this ever. So that will be back to us for action at the next meeting. And
I do wanna-
if nobody has an
I wanna
objection,
ask
we'll
Mr.
put that on
Justice-
the consent agenda.
Yes, I do, but I have a question for Mr. Justice,
He-
very quickly.
He waited for your
I
question.
know, he did
Mr.
wait, he did
McOsker.
wait. So, Ms. Decatur spoke to it about early starts with football, and I'm starting to hear wind that, oh, great, now that we have an August 12th start, boy, I can't wait to get those kids on the football field 15 July. And so is there a policy, or is that going to happen? Or are you going? I would like you to draft a policy up for the earliest start for a fall sport with support of the board.
So the start date for high school sports is governed by the Virginia High School League. And so it's customary the last few years that the actual start date for football practice at the high school level is about the last week of July. And then they get a little bit of a head start, and the other fall sports start the first week of August. Now, there is that advantage currently where they're practicing in the morning or late evening.
Right.
So you start school a little bit earlier, then the
So is that
practices will be after school.
So is that mandated by the state that we must start sports in this county 20 July? Or are you saying that
You can only
the
have so
board
many
can?
formal practice
Can't
days.
start earlier than that.
You may not start any earlier then, but the board can still have a policy that states you won't start practice for a fall sport until 5 August. Is that correct?
Well, we also have that year-round practice ability now that
Tom is trying to speak.
our high school sports could practice more than they used to in the past years. So the VHSL has that year-round policy where they can practice more days than they used to, but there are dead periods where they can't practice that would surround the dates of the start of the next season. So if you're going to be working with your football players out of season, then you got to shut it down for a few weeks so kids could try out for maybe a winter or spring sport and so on. But
So,
those
no,
are.
thank you. No, I appreciate your answer, and I'm not to cut you off, and I know Tom wants to say a few things, but, after the school health brief about the hydration and the correlation between, I half pay attention, right?
Oh, yeah.
The correlation between brain injury and dehydration. And so now this is pushing us way back to something that I think the board needs to get a handle on through policy. And so what I would like to, without belaboring anymore, right, bottom line up front, I would just like, personally, I would like, and if the board agrees, just Tom and crew come back to us with a laydown on how we're doing these sports with the year-round, as mentioned, and the VHL guidelines, and then some options that you think are wise and prudent to take care of our students over the summertime, especially with the early calendar.
So currently, all of our high school athletic trainers and our middle schools have the digital sling cyclometers that monitor the wet bulb, and we keep a really close eye on that.
Good.
We're checking that every day, starting at 10 o'clock, one of those hot days, 10:30. The athletic trainers are checking and communicating, so, we can certainly.
I've been to Iraq, and I know hot's miserable. I'm just letting you know. All right.
I would just like to add to that, we're going to have to really monitor the temperatures and the humidity and everything else, because we don't want a tragedy here.
Right.
And we've had some pretty close calls in the past. And that was when they were practicing in the morning. We're going to be practicing when it's, the hotter part of the day. So it's something that I agree with Mr. McOsker. I think we as a board need to have a policy. Now, we cannot go beyond the VHSL rules, but we can be more restrictive. I'm not suggesting that we're going to restrict it any more than is prudent to ensure the health and safety of our students, particularly those that are outside, in the sports and the band practice. And
So it's band and football
well,
we're talking about?
No, I'm talking about anybody. There are a lot of there are a lot of fall sports.
There's a lot of
Anybody,
fall sports.
in fact,
I'm talking about out on the field in
Field
the
hockey.
heat.
No, not just the field, but cross country. Look, lacrosse is in the
That's
fall.
no, it's-
But aren't there some of the, the dance or the cheerleading? I mean, they're outside. I mean, we're talking about.
On inside.
Well, I've seen them outside when I've driven to the high schools, in August. But anyway,
Come back
it's
to
just
us.
something that we need to address now that we're going to be starting school
Really.
Certainly.
in early August.
Yep, got your work cut out. Yep.
Yeah, but VHSL governs
McNick.
all athletic play and start times, and like Mike said, they usually start, like this year, they're starting around the 30th of July. And each year, we have that, and what we've currently done is we've had a lot more weeks of practice. You have to have 20 days of practice before a competition. And what we find ourselves is that we just do that, and we end up having, this past year, it was 1 to 2 games before school even starts on those weekends. So the season starts pretty much the same time each year. And the VHSL also, several years ago, implemented a restriction on practices, especially during August, and to address your same points, where they're only allowed outside for so many hours during those days, and they can only be inside, and when they're inside, they can't be doing all kinds of work. They have to have time off, where it's just looking at films or chalk and talk, if you would. So they regulate the amount of time as it is right now, but we can definitely create
I would say the board, I would say I didn't want to belabor it. Just come back to us with a briefing on, make sure that we know, and we can talk to our constituents on this issue, because it's going to be a hot topic. That's
hot topic.
Right?
All right, we'll end on that hot topic. Thank you, and we'll look for something from you sometime in the fall. Just an update on how you're coming. It needs to be in place by next summer, so that everyone knows what the plans are. All right.
I just want
Yes.
one more comment, please. I'm scared to ask. I know we have sports athletes on the field and working on dehydration and all that kind of stuff. Do we have a doctor on site?
We have athletic trainers.
I know we do. My son was one, but I'm just saying.
Yeah. At our high schools, and during our football games, usually there's a team doctor or a physician's assistant.
Only in the games? Okay.
Not during practice time. That's their athletic trainer's responsibility.
But we have a nurse in the school?
Nurse in the school until whatever time they leave the building, yes.
Okay.
All right, 10 o'clock, and we are now on
Thanks, Mr. Justice.
10.02.
Thank you.
Yes.
Approve the award of construction delivery order in the amount of $382,963 to Centennial Contractors, Inc. of Dumfries, Virginia, using high school parking fee funds and budgeted FY19 annual operating funds for pavement maintenance at multiple facilities. If there's no questions on this, we'll move on.
Asked to move it to
Questions?
action.
Oh,
Respectfully,
okay. All
staff
right.
respectfully requests this
All
item.
right, so
be
we
moved
have a
to-
motion to move 10.02 to action by Dr. Chase. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Young. All in favor of the motion to move it to action? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Do we have a motion?
I move that we approve 10.02.
All right, motion to approve. Any
Second.
discussion? Oh, second. I'm sorry, Ms. Young. It's getting late. I'm on a 6-hour different time zone right now, so.
Yeah, Italy,
All in
I'm
favor of the
crying.
motion? Any discussion? Any discussion? All in favor of the motion to approve,
Italy.
please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion
Aye.
carries 6-1. 10.03, approve the award.
Wait a minute, 6-1.
6-0.
Irene was not
I'm sorry,
6-0.
6-0.
Okay.
10.03, approve the award of a service contract in the amount of $200,000 to Painters Touch, Inc. of Temple Hill, Maryland, using budgeted FY19 operating funds in support of the school division's interior/exterior painting program.
And this is also requested to be moved to action, so I request that we move it 10.03 to action.
All right?
Second.
Motion by Dr. Chase. I think I heard Ms. Hazard first for a
No,
second.
Ms. Pam. It was Ms. Pam. Hazard didn't say anything.
Oh,
I didn't think.
I heard.
It's fine,
Yeah?
Pam. I
Okay,
I
Ms.
did too.
Hazard.
It's fine. Pam, move on.
All right, we have a motion and a second. The clerk can figure it out. All in favor of the motion to move this to action, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, motion carries 7-0. Do we have a motion for approval of this action?
What number?
10.03.
Motion to approve 10.03.
Didn't you just do that?
That was a motion by Ms. Decatur. Do we have a second?
Second.
I'm going to start raising your hand here. I don't know. I heard Dr. Chase. May have heard something on the other end, but we'll take Dr. Chase at this one. All right, we have a motion and a second to move 10.03 to action. I'm sorry. Oh, sorry. Move it for
Motion to
approval.
approve.
It's way too late.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Chairman Decatur, thank you.
Oh, gee, do you want to go home, Ms. Decatur?
Aye.
We need to move along, huh? I know. All right. Was that unanimous? All right. 10.04, approve the
I want to move
procurement.
to approve this 10.04. Hopefully it has air conditioning. Yeah, move it to action. Does it have
Motion
air
to move
conditioning?
10.04 to action.
Yeah, so do the buses have AC that we're buying?
Does
Yes,
it
they
have
do.
air
Good.
conditioning? Yes, great. Buy them now.
Huh, all right, we'll fight to get those in our districts.
Motion to move 10.04 to action.
All right,
Second.
Motion second, all in favor of moving into action, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries unanimously. Do we have a motion to approve 10.04?
Motion to approve 10.04.
Motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries unanimously. 10.05, approve 6 full-time equivalent positions at a cost not to exceed $206,944 to meet anticipated needs for additional instructional support.
Motion to move 10.05 to action.
All right, motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion
All
to
opposed?
approve.
Motion carries unanimously.
Motion to approve 10.05.
Ms., I do have comment on this one, if when we get to it.
Well, we
you
are.
approved?
Well, we
Okay.
have a motion to
Okay,
approve
okay.
it in
I
a
was trying
second,
to
so
follow.
you better comment now, or we're going to be voting.
I will be supporting this motion. However, as discussed at the FAB, I feel that I have to bring my concerns about this item. I'm sorry, Dwayne, I know you're looking at me, but I got to say it.
I got it.
It wouldn't be fair if I didn't bring my concerns. I appreciate that we are filling the growth positions, but that we have already filled the growth positions in next year's budget pretty much on June 26th. We are coming in and asking for 6 more positions or a combination, which I hope the board read, that it's a combination of what's in the best interest of kids. Obviously, in light of the prior vote in Hartwood, growth is an issue. It's a huge issue. Very big in my district, but we cannot, though, keep approving these as we get into the fall without knowing that in next year's budget, this year when we started this year's budget, we were $1.2 million in the hole of addressing needs. This is not about not addressing the needs of kids, but I believe we as a board are going to have to seriously look at whether we need to get away from something I tirelessly and really worked hard on, and as did Mr. McCosker, of our class size reduction. If we continue to go with that and we add 10 and 12 positions every year in the fall, we are falling farther behind. I don't like that we are having to pit growth against our class size reduction, but we are. And I think that that's something, so this evening, I am going to agree with this one, but I am saying to my board, as we get into the fall, because I find that hiring will be harder in the fall, that I think that we have to re-examine, or you all have to examine, whether the class size reduction initiative that we passed is something that we can afford.
Okay, any other discussion?
I have a comment on this one.
Ms. Young?
I too brought it up during the FAB, and we have problems filling the positions as is right now. And if we approve this one, that means that we need to add those numbers for next year also. So that's my concern.
Okay, any other comments, discussion? All right, all in favor of the motion to approve 10.05, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Opposed.
Madam Clerk?
Dr. Chase? Aye. Ms. Decatur?
Aye.
Ms. Egan? Aye. Ms. Hazard?
Aye.
Ms. Healy?
Yes.
Mr. Rukowski?
Yes.
Ms. Young?
No.
All right, motion passes 6-1. 10.06, approve a 10-cent increase to lunch prices and a 5-cent increase to breakfast prices at all school levels for the 2018-2019 school year. And our Director of Nutrition has been patiently waiting.
Patiently
for
waiting.
Hours and hours for us to get to this item. Is there any questions about this?
So bottom line up front is Child Nutrition Act, where it's a mandated 10% increase for,
Do it, he stayed.
well, come on,
Well, he's
come on
asking
down
a
there.
question.
Give us a quick,
Well, I just asked if there's any questions.
No.
Thank you for staying.
thank you for staying, and because you've stayed, I have a
This
question.
poor man lives near
Yeah,
Richmond.
this one is a VDOE USDA state formality. They basically require us to increase yearly. We have the option to take a year off effectively, but then we have to double our raise the prior year. So we feel it's in the best interest to gradually raise as opposed to
Hitting them with the 25%.
hitting them, yeah,
increase,
exactly,
right.
with a quarter increase. Really, all it does is cover our increase in food cost. I think this year, actually, it's not even necessarily going to cover that. We're going to be about 0.5% off. So we'll make that up in other ways.
I dare to ask, but how are we doing with the, have we recouped our money from the plan?
I had a feeling you'd ask, so I put
Okay.
those numbers together.
Okay.
And I want to thank everybody for taking action on it in February, because I think it made a huge impact on where we ended up.
Right.
We are just over $10,000 negative. Now, having said that, of that $10,000, $4,700 of it is adult debt.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
We are not required to pay that back to the state.
Okay.
So we can roll that. Our debt that we have to pay back for the state this year, and we did receive a lot of donations, which I also want to thank the community for. We had a lot of community partners, parents
Nice.
that reached out to us. Total for the year, $6,200.
Nice.
So very reasonable, very more than enough for us to handle. Again, we had a lot of constituencies reach out to us. Parents donated funds. We had some excess balance
Right.
funds that folks were able to donate, clearing out accounts. Folks were putting those into a lump sum.
Right.
So we were able to mitigate it quite a bit. Now, if we
Good.
can just get the teachers to pay off their debt, we'll be good.
Aw.
My son owed 82 cents, but he graduated, so he had to pay it off before
Yes,
he
ma'am.
That's right. They'll get you before
They
graduation.
will, yeah. And they don't even come to us to school a lot of times. They'll
They
send
get
out a letter. It says, you owe this in the library, you owe this in the
Yeah.
cafeteria, you
Yeah.
owe this here.
Well, I just want to say what a wonderful job you're doing.
I
And I
appreciate
really
that.
appreciate all your hard work over this last year. It's been kind of tough, so.
Yes.
Well, I appreciate
And
that.
particularly with this, with the change, because I know you personally made many, many phone calls
I did,
to these
yes, I did.
parents who were in debt.
Yes,
And,
quite a few
and
of them.
reaching out to the community. So thank you for your extra effort. I
Quick
think
question.
Not a problem.
success reflective of
Yeah.
your.
Very good
input.
job.
Thank you.
The increase, that 10 cents, how are we planning on using it? Like, what?
It's going to cover our increase in food cost. So per our contracts, not to get too involved, but
Right.
effectively our vendors have 2 times per year where they can institute a price increase. In January, right at mid-year, and then on July 1, the new rollover year will start. So we actually just got our increase in pricing. It's going up about 3.5% over our cost this year. So the additional income that we'll get in from this price increase actually isn't even going to cover our full amount of increase in food costs. So we'll be making that up on another avenue.
So a lot of the high schoolers were telling me that when the opportunity comes to tell them that the food doesn't taste well, they always complain about that, so. maybe
Well, we
get
have-
some seasoning.
We have pretty decent participation at the high schools, and to be perfectly honest with you, I would love to season some of this stuff more than we are able to.
Hey, cayenne, you should
Yeah,
cayenne hot sauce.
I know.
Yeah, we do have hot sauce. Yeah, salt is the biggest thing. It's shocking what a difference salt can make in things, and our sodium restrictions are
Tries.
pretty stringent, unfortunately.
Well, thank you, and thank you so much for staying.
a
This has
problem.
been
Yeah.
a late night.
Good night.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, folks.
All right,
Thank you.
10.07, amended, approved the acting superintendent's proposed revisions to policies and regulations as reviewed by the Executive Director of Strategic Communication and Community Engagement. This will be coming to us for action at the next meeting. Are there any questions this evening? If any questions come up, I suggest you send them to Mrs. Kale, and she will get them to our Strategic Communications
We'll leave the
Director.
strategic communications alone tonight.
All right. 10.08, approve the purchase and implementation of ExecuTime software and time clock hardware
Yep.
using remaining enterprise resource planning,
I move to approve.
ERP, capital project funds at a cost of $470,806.
The 470,000 is a savings.
Well, that's the cost. That's.
It's also, it came from a
Yes,
savings,
yes.
so I move to approve this.
Okay. Well,
Well, actually, it's borrowed money, so
It's- well, it's
it's
borrowed.
just money we're not going to, we're going to borrow. and-
No, in July, we'll take on your approval. Thanks anyway.
All right. Yeah, there is not an urgency for this evening.
That's the time
right?
clock that I briefed everyone on the
Yeah,
the
but,
punch.
um,
Yeah, it's a good
It's
thing.
something to remind me, why hold it up?
Well, because we may get some comments from staff.
feedback.
This is a pilot program.
Anymore.
Oh, excuse
Well,
me.
actually,
The
he's
FAB
on
needs to look at it.
Up
Till
to
July
today.
1st,
Up
June
to-
30th at midnight, he's
Yes,
he's
that's
gone.
right. See?
He's still there. The new appointments don't take effect until July 1st.
He said we'll take that on in July, so.
No, he meant this item is coming back on the agenda
Do you
in
need
July.
time or anything to get this moved? What is your, do you have any concern?
So, typically I would say, yep, let's move it forward, let's move on. I will say it would help tremendously with the timeline because all along we wanted to implement this, not this coming school year, but the following school year, or at least start phasing it in by then. And we wanted to be moving ahead with this a couple months ago. It's just been crazy, a lot of stuff going on. So we've pushed it off and then took it to the FAB and then came here. So that extra month would be great, but I completely understand that I'm not going to push you guys. I do not do that unless it's a really urgent need. We'll try to pick up some time somewhere and get things rolling somewhere in the implementation, assuming it gets approved.
Go ahead.
No, I don't care, but I'm just saying the summer months, it will be a good time.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Okay.
Implement this.
Brand new.
What?
So is it helpful or not helpful? I just want to make sure.
He said yes.
It is definitely helpful.
It's always going to be helpful. My only reason for wanting to put this on next month is in case there are some staff that want to provide comments to it. I mean, and we are only talking about a pilot and not, across the board, but there may be some input that comes up that may be helpful. So I mean, I would.
Did you did
Prefer
a
to
survey
wait.
with the staff already?
We had central office staff, department staff from across the division, and also talked with all the principals. And the principals had overwhelming support for this as far as helping them track all their staff in the building. They're currently using other methods, whether it's manual sign-ins or we use our Raptor software as a sign-in mechanism as well for staff. So almost all of our schools already have some sort of sign-in method.
I'm just making sure that
They already have some form of sign-in, so this is making it easier for staff to sign in and easier for our principals to track.
Can you go over the specifications of each unit, please?
I'm going to cut you off, Mr. McOsker. You do a private session with him after the meeting tonight, okay?
I'm waiting for Mr. McOsker to thank me 3 times for staying here tonight until 10:15.
Thank you. Oh, thank you so much.
Thanks.
Oh, we know you love it, Chris.
Yeah, thank you. You love it.
All right. Well, that will be back, but of course, you can feel free to get started on whatever you want to get started on prior to it being voted on.
Thank you for staying.
Yes, that was honest.
I think you're.
Mine wasn't.
Yes, not many of you left out there in audience land.
You're going to wear you all down.
All right. That brings us to 10.09, which can definitely wait to the next meeting for action. Appoint the school board's voting delegate and alternate voting delegate for the VSBA Delegate Assembly at the 2018 VSBA Annual Convention. If anybody's dying to do it, just, let us know, because we have a delegate and an alternate, and that will be back for action at the next meeting. We have an announcement, 2 announcements, actually. The next meeting of the school board is Tuesday, July 17th at 7 p.m. here in the school board chambers. And there is another one, which thank goodness is on colored paper. I could pick it out. Within the next 15 days, the school board will hold meetings solely for the purpose of holding interviews with the superintendent candidate finalists. The exact date, time, and location of these interviews will remain undisclosed in accordance with section.
I'm going to tell you who it is.
Excuse me.
I'm just waiting till we're quiet, all right? The exact date, time, and location of these interviews will remain undisclosed in accordance with Section 2.2-3712B of the Code of Virginia in order to protect the privacy of the candidates who may not have revealed their employment search to their current employer. And that is the end. We fortunately amended the agenda to remove the closed session so we can all go home.
You hear my joke?